Please, can you mute yourself? So if we could have question 1 up, please. Okay, apologies everyone. We are now good to go, so we will jump straight into our icebreaker questions. Like I said before, hopefully everyone can hear me. I'm wanting to see lots of engagement in the chat, so it is multiple choice. So all you need to do is put the letter that you think the answer is into the chat and we'll get going. So number 1, which of the following is often cited as one of the 5 love languages? A, physical touch, B, building trust, C, being creative, or D, leadership qualities? Starting off nice and simple. We hear about the 5 love languages all the time. Okay, I can see some people entering their answers. Want to see a little bit more? Okay, a lot of us are thinking A, physical touch, not building trust, not leadership qualities. Okay, and the answer is A, physical touch. So well done. I think everybody got that right. Well done. We are going to go on to number 2. So what percentage of married couples claim to be very happy in their marriage? Is it 25%, 40%, C, 55%, or D, 70%? There's no 100%. What about the couples who are 100% happy in their marriage? Oh, some people think only 25%. Okay, what are we thinking? 40%, 55, 70%? Okay, we've got some varied answers. Some people are thinking 25, some are thinking 40%. Okay, and the answer is 55%. Okay, that's really good. Number 3, which of the following is not one of the stages of love according to Sternberg's triangular theory of love? Is it A, intimacy, B, passion, C, commitment, or D, infatuation? Which one is not one of the stages of love? Intimacy, passion, commitment, or infatuation? Everyone is thinking infatuation. Some people are thinking commitment. And the answer is infatuation. Yes, infatuation doesn't last. It's not the experience that we want people to have. Okay, we are going to go on to the next question. Research suggests that couples who engage in this activity regularly have happier marriages. What do we think it is? A, watching TV together. B, playing video games. C, attending church services. Or D, date nights. So couples who engage in this activity regularly have happier marriages. What do we think keeps marriages happy? Watching TV, playing video games, attending church. I think, come on, attending church is important. Or date nights. A lot of people are after these date nights. Okay, and the answer is date nights, yes. Not that the other things aren't important. We know that the other things are, but date nights regularly. I think that's the key word. All right, our next question. Which of the following is considered a key component of emotional intelligence in a relationship? Is it A, empathy, B, dominance, C, independence, or D, competitiveness? So a lot of people are thinking empathy, and hopefully we're adopting these things into our own marriages. Okay, a lot of people are thinking A. Which of the following is considered a key component of emotional intelligence? Okay, and the answer is empathy. I think most people got that one right. Well done. Having some healthy marriages. Okay, our next question. Studies have shown that couples who share this household chore together tend to have stronger relationships. Do we think it's A, cooking, B, cleaning, C, laundry, or D, dishes? Everybody look straight. Don't look at your spouse. Chores together. Which household chore do we think keeps couples strong together? Cooking, cleaning, laundry, or dishes? Okay, some people think cooking, some people think cleaning. What about the dishes? One washes, one rinses. Laundry, one loads, one hangs up. Okay, and the answer is cooking. Everybody likes a bit of food. Okay, our next question. What does it mean to revere your spouse? And so that's the title of this weekend's marriage event. What does it mean? What does it actually mean to revere your spouse? A, to be in agreement all the time. B, to complete tasks for your spouse. C, to show respect or admiration. Or D, to make decisions for your spouse. What are we thinking? What does it mean to revere? Did anybody search the word? Well, no cheating, but did you search the word when you saw the title of the conference? Okay, we're thinking to show respect or admiration. What about completing tasks for your spouse or being in agreement all the time? Okay, a lot of people are thinking C. The answer is C, to show respect or admiration. And we're going to hear a lot more about that as this afternoon unfolds. Okay, so our next question. In what ways can we act in and practice reverence? A, ignore your spouse's views to keep the peace. B, consider your spouse's thoughts and feelings. C, wait for your spouse's opinion on every matter before you make a decision. Or D, express your appreciation daily. What do we think? Ignoring your spouse's views, considering their thoughts and feelings, waiting for their opinion before you make a decision, or expressing appreciation daily. Okay, a lot of people are thinking B. How can we practice reverence? So we've just found out that it's about respect and admiration. How does that work in practice? Okay, so a lot of people are thinking B. Some are thinking C. The answer is B. Well done. Consider your spouse's thoughts and feelings. All right, we've only got a couple of questions left. Our next one, please. If your spouse is feeling down, showing reverence might involve A, ignoring their feelings and trying to cheer them up. B, offering words of encouragement and support. C, criticizing their attitude. Or D, buying them a gift. If your spouse is feeling down, how can you show them respect or admiration in that situation? Ignoring their feelings, offering words of encouragement and support, criticizing their attitude, or buying them a gift. Oh, a lot of people are liking gifts, that new bag, those new shoes. Okay, the answer is B, offering words of encouragement and support. Everybody needs a word of encouragement. All right, our last question. Let's see if we can get this one right. Why is reverence important in a relationship? A, it fosters a sense of trust and security. B, it helps to maintain a healthy balance of power. C, it's a natural consequence of love. Or D, it ensures you will never have arguments. Okay, so why is reverence? Why are we holding this conference? Why are we focusing on the concept of revering one another? It fosters a sense of trust and security. It helps to maintain a healthy balance of power. It's a natural consequence of love, or it ensures you will never have arguments. What are we thinking? A lot of people are thinking it fosters a sense of trust and security. And the answer is A. Well done. It fosters a sense of trust and security. Amazing. So that is just our icebreaker and introduction for our conference today. There is a lot more to come, and I will be handing over, but enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.
Thank you. So now it's time for our first general session, which will be led by Pastors Shola and Bimbo Fola-Alade. So please sit back and listen to their introduction. Thank you.
A well-respected international author, publisher, conference speaker, coach, and mentor to various businesses, as well as social, political, and spiritual leaders. He has touched the lives of thousands around the world with simple but powerful messages that inspire, challenge, and empower individuals to live beyond their limitations, discover their destiny, and live by divine design. He equips people to make an impact in their generation and exercise their leadership influence in society.
Bimbo Fola-Alade. She started professional life as a lawyer. She now co-pastors the Liberty Church London, a fast-growing and dynamic church alongside her husband, Dr. Fola-Alade. She is a well-regarded Bible teacher, pastor and conference speaker, and is often sought out in her areas of specialization: marriage and relationships, maximizing womanhood, parenting, and spiritual growth.
If you make the basis of your choice of a life partner on the basis of the car he drives or the suit he wears, it's likely that you'll miss your Boaz. You see, Boazes aren't found in the nightclub. Hey, can we talk? Can we talk? Boaz came from a place of prophecy, from a town of prophecy.
She is also a professional counselor and works regularly with clients to gain freedom over issues such as depression, anxiety, sexual abuse, and childhood trauma, and to strengthen marriage relationships.
If you're going to be somebody who has long-lasting relationships, you cannot be somebody who easily hardens yourself against people. Sometimes we do that. We wall ourselves in because we've been hurt before. Now let me tell you this. If you wall yourself in, you wall yourself in from pain. True. But you also wall yourself in from joy. You wall yourself in from love. You wall yourself in from happiness. Our heart must be soft.
She has over 20 years of ministry experience and is committed to equipping singles and women to attain their full potential in Christ and to build strong and stable families. Welcome your conference host, Bimbo Fola-Alade.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Revere conference live from the Liberty Point, Woodford. We're excited to have so many of you join us this afternoon from all over the world. As this is a virtual conference, as you guys know, please let me know where you're at in the chat, which country you're logging in from. I've already seen a couple of people that I know are from Canada. So if you're outside of the UK, please drop your location in the chat box. We'd love to know where you are from. So welcome everybody to the Revere conference. It's going to be an exciting afternoon. Just to give you an overview of what our afternoon is going to look like, it's just going to be 3 sessions. We're going to be starting with the first session myself and Pastor Shola are taking, which is a general session. Then we're going to be going into our breakout. So if you're watching from YouTube, your breakout will be selected for you. But if you're on Zoom, you should have a choice of which breakout that you attend. And nearer the time, we'll let you know what the 3 titles of the breakouts are so that you can select the one that you feel is most appropriate for you in your marital season. And then we'll be ending with the 3rd session, which is a chat show. We'll be talking about those burning issues that are close to your heart. So I'm really hoping that, you guys are geared up for that. As we're speaking, there might be things that come to mind. Please feel free to jot, down your questions and things that you want to bring up at the chat show, because we'll have an opportunity through the chat on the Zoom and also on Slido for you to ask your questions. So I can see from the chat show that we have, from the chat box, that we have people from South Africa, we have people from Canada, we have people from the USA, and of course, lots of people from the UK. So I want you to just celebrate yourself, congratulate yourself wherever you are. You are the wise ones who have made the choice this afternoon to invest in your marriage. So let's get started. We're going to jump right in and share the first session, which is a general session titled Revere. So let me go on and show my screen. I hope you guys can see my screen. Those of you who are on Zoom, give me a thumbs up if you're able to see my screen. Give me a thumbs up electronically if you're able to see my screen to confirm that you're following along with the notes. Audience, can you guys see my I have an audience here that refused to talk to me. Audience, can we talk? Awesome. Can you see the screens yet? Can you see the presentation? Can you see the slides? No? Okay. Apparently, they don't want you. Somebody is waving at me. They're not allowed to see the slides. Okay. All you have is beautiful me. I hope you can make do with that. So let's get going. We're going to be sharing with you a session titled Revere. So let's just get right in for sake of time. And what does it mean to revere? We all know what the title of the session is. And what does it mean to revere? Let's start with some definitions so that we make sure that we're all on the same page. This year's annual conference, as you guys know, is titled Revere. What does it mean to revere? Really, revere is another word for reverence. It's another word for reverence. It's another word for respect. And interestingly, it also means to hallow. That means to be exalted or be in awe of. So akin to worship. I find that word particularly interesting, that God wants you and I to have a connection with our spouse in terms of the reverential aspect of our relationship that is almost like worshiping our spouse. So I don't know whether you've assessed your relationship lately and whether or not you feel that that level of awe, excitement of each other is at a level where it's almost akin to worship, where you adore or value your spouse so much that you are in awe of them. If that's not your current experience in your marriage, my prayer is that as we go on today, you will be equipped with practical skills and tools that will help you elevate your reverence and honor of each other. Let's look quickly at our key scriptures for today. 2 scriptures. First of all, Ephesians 5:33 and 1 Peter 3:7. Reading Ephesians 5:33 first. It says, "Nevertheless, let each one of you in particular so love his own wife as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband." And 1 Peter 3:7, it says, "Husbands likewise dwell with them with understanding, giving honor to the wife as to the weaker vessel, or as the more fragile vessel physically, and as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers may not be hindered." So in these scriptures, we see the mutual call to respect and to reverence each other. Many times in kingdom talk, we can think that respect is something that men only desire and that love is something that women only desire. But as we talk today, as we unfold this thing, we're going to see how critical it is for each spouse within the marriage, and most especially how respect ignites or solidifies the love commitment within a marriage. So why is reverence important in marriage? Why is honor important in marriage? I'm going to share with you 8 reasons why reverence and honor is important in marriage. First of all, honor is a mark of value of the person. Romans 13:7, it says, "Give honor to whom honor is due." So honor is due our spouse, honor is due our wife or our husband because of the place that God has put them in our lives. You know, if God gives you a husband, he gives you a head, he gives you a lead. He gives you somebody that is called to be a cover. If God gives you a woman, he gives you a helper. He gives you the crown of your head. He gives you a supporter. And so when we recognize the position that the person holds in our life, honor is something that should emanate from that understanding, because we know that the person has been put in our life by God for a critical reason and that they occupy a critical position. The second reason why reverence or honor is important in marriage is because it's a form of appreciation. When you honor somebody, you let them know that they're special to you, they're significant to you, they mean something in your life, they are important to you. Number 3 reason why we need to honor our spouse is because it lays the foundation for good communication. If you don't honor your spouse, if you don't reverence your spouse, it's very likely that your communication is broken in the marriage. There is a relationship expert called John Gottman, and he did a study several years ago. And in this study, his job was to try and evaluate those couples that came to him for counseling whose marriage was likely to end in divorce. And after several years of doing this research, where he actually had cameras in people's houses so that he could evaluate and see how they were responding to each other in their day-to-day life, he came up with 4 significant indicators that a marriage was going to end in divorce. Interestingly enough, 3 of those 4 indicators circled around the issue of communication. So whenever there was in these signs in a relationship, there was a 99% accuracy prediction that that marriage would end up in divorce. So the first was a harsh startup. You know, when a couple in their communication will want to discuss something and they start off harshly or they start off, you know, in a negative way, it was a huge sign that that marriage was heading for trouble. The second was criticism. You know, in a relationship where there is a lot of criticism, a lot of complaints, a lot of verbal dissatisfaction communicated to the spouse. And then lastly is contempt, is when your communication or your lack of reverence for each other becomes so significant that it's actually contemptuous. You can barely speak to the person positively. Everything that you communicate to the person is laden with poison, is laden with bitterness. The root of that is lack of respect. Because when we don't reverence each other, when we don't honor each other appropriately, it begins to come up in our speech and in our communication with our spouse. Number 4 indication, or number 4 reason why reverence is important in our marriage, is that it lays the foundation for good treatment of each other. You know, if we honor each other, we will treat each other well. In fact, bad treatment in marriage is often, the root of it is often lack of value or honor for each other. So when we learn to reverence each other appropriately, when we learn to appreciate each other, what springs from it then is good treatment or positive treatment of each other. Number 5 reason why reverence or honor is important in a marriage is that it gives a good model to our children and onlookers. Whether or not you are aware of it, your marriage is speaking to those around you. And people are learning from you, good or bad, about your marriage. I realized this several years ago when my cousin came to stay with us. He came from Lagos and he stayed with us. And when he left, he said, one of the things that he took away from us was that we start the day and we end the day with kisses. I didn't even know that it was a pattern we had built in our marriage. But he took it away as a single man, as a principle that he wanted to imbibe in his own marriage. You know, many times what is familiar becomes unvalued. Many times we stop valuing our spouse, we stop treating, and this point was actually meant for the previous point, number 4. Many times we don't treat each other well in our marriage because we have become familiar with each other. And because we're familiar with each other, we value each other less. We take each other for granted. Many times we're so close to our spouse that it's hard for us to see their true value in our lives. Number 6 reason why reverence or honor is important in marriage is that it's a requisite for longevity in marriage. The truth is your marriage will not last in length, or even if it lasts in length, it will not last in quality without proper honor, without proper reverence for each other. Because wherever people are not being celebrated, wherever people are not being looked after, wherever people are not being honored, is a place that they don't want to be. And sooner or later, people are going to look for an exit from that situation. Number 7 is that reverence or honor is the foundation of love. Actually, it is the foundation of all spiritual relationships. In Malachi 1:6, God says, "Where is my honor? If I am a master, where is my reverence?" says the Lord of hosts. So even in our relationship with God, honor or reverence is the foundation of that relationship. And our relationship with God cannot grow or be what it is supposed to be if there is not reverence or awe as a foundation of it. It also applies to our relationships with our fathers, with authority figures, and with our spouse. Without due honor, love cannot be properly shown or received. You can say you love me, but if your behavior is not respectful, is not honoring, then it is hard for me to receive the love that you are trying to show or communicate. And then lastly, there can be no true intimacy without reverence or honor. Without respect, couples withdraw from each other or they attack each other. So many times when there's no respect in a marriage, one party decides that how they are going to handle it is that they are going to withdraw from the marriage. They might be there physically, but they're emotionally withdrawn from the marriage. They are no longer participating actively in the marriage. Sometimes when respect is missing, and the way another person might respond is that they might demand it and become very insistent and demanding of the respect they feel is their due. So I hope that this summary introduction has given us an insight into how important reverence and honor is in our marriage. So let's go on now and look at our next segment, and we're going to be talking about what reverence and honor looks like, first of all, to a husband and then to a wife. As you can see, honor and reverence is very important in our marriage. So we now want to look at it specifically from a man's point of view and then from a woman's point of view. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Pastor Shola, who is going to be connecting with us virtually to take this segment. Pastor Shola, over to you. Pastor Shola, over to you.
All right. Thanks a lot, Pastor Beams. God bless you all. Um, Great to be on the conference. It's a much needed conference. Marriages, definitely, we need some kind of fuel, engine oil. You know, it's not doing marriage alone is not it's a tough one. So it helps that when we're in community and then when we can learn from each other. And so we're talking about honor, we're talking about reverence, and I'm going to be talking about what reverence looks like to a man. Pastor Beams, thanks for the foundation that you laid. And so I'll just build on that. Can you hear me? Is there an echo? What do we do about
Yes.
that? Can you hear me? Is it still echoing?
Yes, there's an echo.
Okay, so what do I? Don't know what to do about that. So I switch off the YouTube, even though it's not.
Fix, I think.
Is it better?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what does reverence look like to a man? We'll just take two scriptures and we'll work with that. The first is Ephesians 5:33, and it says, "And let the wife see that she respects her husband." Let the wife see that she respects her husband. Now, eh, we need to understand that that's in context. And then it says also, that the wife should, the husband should love the wife. Okay, but then it says, it says in First Peter chapter 3 verse 7, it says, "Husbands likewise dwell with them," as in that is with the husbands, "with understanding, giving honor to the wife." So both husbands and wives require honor and respect, even though honor is the fuel of the man, and love is kind of more like the fuel of the woman. Now, when we talk about respect, I see this. Respect is essentially saying, I see this person, that is your husband or wife, as important, and I speak to and treat them with honor and regard. Okay, like Pastor Beams said earlier, especially if you've been married for a long time, it's easy to become familiar with the person you live with. You eat with them, you sleep with them, you do all sorts of things with them, you joke around. And that sense of respect, even with children and parents, when you play around with your kids a lot, they can even begin to disrespect you. But respect is something that we must always, it's a very important ingredient in marriage. I'll show you in a short while that when it is lost, the marriage is almost more or less being lost. Respect and regard is important to keeping a relationship strong. It's hard to love someone we don't respect. You know, when people say that, oh, there's no more love in this marriage, the truth of the matter is usually respect, first of all, flies out of the window, then love follows. All right. When couples say nasty things to each other, hit each other, and disregard their spouse, it shows a lack of respect for each other. Respect not, and we should respect not only out of love for our husband, because this is about showing reverence or honor for the man. Because husband is an office, and also wife is an office. It's not just the person that this is my husband. You know, it is actually an office. It's like saying, this is my pastor. Okay. And when you understand what God has called that person to be in your life, it will help you to treat them well. Many times it's dishonor that starts the disintegration of a marriage, and dishonor that serves the final injunction on that marriage. You know, Trust me, once disrespect goes, once respect goes out of the marriage, love follows very quickly. This honor can enter the marriage in many ways, in many different ways, through abuse. It could be physical abuse, from hitting someone on the head, slapping, beating them, or whatever it is, to verbal abuse. Some people say, "Oh, I've never been, abusive in my marriage," but it could be verbally abusive, idiot, foolish, those kind of things. Those are not words that should be found within a marriage. Or emotionally abused, controlling, gaslighting, intimidating, and all of that stuff. So abuse is one way, even without so much using words, that one can be dishonoring. Then infidelity, what people, that's a very, you know, if you have a husband or wife and then you are flirting either in front of them or behind them, it is the highest form of disrespect. Many times, almost irreparable. Okay. sending inappropriate text, emails, calls, getting in touch with an ex on Facebook or Instagram, interactions, liaisons, collecting money from, or getting in touch, getting in touch with, collecting money or giving money to an ex, or money from collecting money from your in-laws, as in your siblings or whatever, without conferring with your spouse. It's a very high form of disrespect. Yeah, because if you're going to do that kind of thing, it has to be in agreement. Then also things like selfishness and lack of consideration, not taking your spouse into consideration when making your plans. You just do things and you just all of a sudden you just say, "Oh, I'm traveling." How we live in the same house, and no prior notice, nothing, not consulting about key decisions. You buy a house, car, you just come home with a car, or you just have, or you buy something, without even letting your spouse, a high involvement good. It shows that this person is not important in the scheme of things. Irresponsibility is also a high form of disrespect. Not carrying one's weight in the house, not paying your part of the bill if there's anything like that, not caring enough about making contributions, to the family or the house. You just do your own thing, blah blah blah. It's also a form of disrespect. Okay, so, but let's take a closer look at ways a man can feel honored or respected. Very quickly, or revered. The first is when we say respect him, you can respect him through our speech, especially when we are angry or upset. Choosing, not to say anything. The Bible says, be angry, but sin not. So, taking, you are angry. But the thing is, you know, the Bible says, but sin not. All right. So the choice of our words, silence, even though what the person said hurt you, or what they did, at that point in time, choosing not to, use vile words, because there's a saying, an African proverb that says that, words are like eggs, like raw eggs, uncooked eggs, that if you throw them on the ground and they break, you can't put them back. Your body language, you may say, well, I'm not saying anything, but your body language is showing a lot of disrespect. You need to watch that. Then treatment, especially if you are a higher earner, or more visible positionally. As a wife, you have to be very, you know, really, really um, cognizant and walk circumspectly. The Bible says, and David behaved himself wisely, when he was with Saul. Why? Because David had more accolades. People were shouting, David has won, Saul has killed his thousands, but David is 10,000. And David wasn't king. So they may call you boss at work, but when you're at home, you have to be very wise if you want to keep your marriage, to really show a lot of honor and respect to your husband. If your working is out of work and you are the one bringing the income, be very careful. My wife and I, there's certain programs we watch, even though we are very careful about what we watch these days. There's this 90-day fiancé thing. The one they started showing these days, they are getting more and more perverse. She bringing all sorts of, same sex, this, and also, you can see it's very intentional. So one is even beginning to lose the taste for it. But, there's this particular one, the lady is a doctor, a successful doctor in New York, has multiple businesses. I think she also trained as a lawyer or something. And she went on holiday to Colombia and fell in love with this guy who is, I don't know whether he's a lifeguard or personal trainer or something like that, who can't even speak English. And she's very finicky about, she's a germaphobe, OCD and all of that. But she goes and visits the guy's family in the village. They're obviously poor. she's been sending money to, to him in Colombia, and she's complaining and everything. And the way she's talking to him, that look, she paid for everything, this, that, but the what broke the relationship was that, she went to visit his family, and she was just being whatever about not touching anything and cleaning. She wanted to use the toilet. She got there and she found out that there was no flusher, that you had to use a bowl, a bucket to flush and she refused to use the toilet. And she was like, there was there, and then the guy just made up his mind, he's not marrying this one, and she was wondering when they got back to, in fact, so it's like, say they went to the countryside, let's say they went to go and visit the family. Let me see where what countryside is there in the UK, wherever, maybe in Colchester.
Scotland.
Sorry, where? In Scotland, okay, or
Scotland.
wherever. And then and then as they're leaving Scotland, in the rural area, she said, "Oh, thank God we're leaving Scotland, and we're now going to London, which is, the city, this and that, and it just showed a lot of, and the guy was younger than she is, maybe about 10 years younger, a lot of disrespect, she was behaved in a condescending manner, and she kept reminding him that she spent a lot of money to come. When they got back to London, the guy just disappeared. And when she found him, she said, "Oh, where have you been? Don't you know I've spent a lot of money to come here, and you need to be spending time with me." So it was clear, the guy just said, "Look, I'm done. You can take your money away." So, the point is, there's nothing wrong with marrying someone poorer than you are, or not as well to do, or somebody younger, somebody from a whatever, but you must be ready to make sure you give the respect. If you cannot respect the person, don't marry them. If you've married them, show them respect. Okay. And so, number two is, how does a man want to be honored? When the Bible says, make sure the wife should honor the husband, praise him. Men love praise. Everybody talks about men and their ego. It's a real thing, in the sense that, of course, men need to be careful about that, because the ego too, can become a thing that, can be overinflated. But the issue is, even beyond men, everybody wants their esteem built. Everybody wants to be affirmed. Praise genuine, sincere, and don't lie. Just affirm. If you'll be amazed what affirming your husband daily will do. It's like tonic to your marriage. Oh, thank you. And simple things. Thank you for how you pay the bills. Thank you for how you look after the children. Thank you. One of the mistakes women make is they focus on the things that are not being done. Everybody does that. Oh, you don't do this, you don't do this, you don't do this, you don't do this. So that you don't do this, you don't do this, you don't do this, you don't do this, you don't. But what about focusing on the things the person is doing? Oh, thank you for how you do this. Thank you for how you do this. Thank you for how you do this. And doing it daily, such that it boosts them. The day you mention the things that are not done, the person would understand, and will take those things. But and this goes for both men and women. We tend to put a microscope on the things that are not done. Usually, the times we appreciate them is when the person is not there, and we then begin, or when we see somebody else who is doing worse. Okay, so let's take out time to, give praises, acknowledge their achievements. Oh, I saw how you did so and so. You did a phenomenal job at, eh, people don't understand. It's interesting when men marry ladies who are not even that pretty, and they're like, "Oh, how did this?" It's what the person did in the courtship, or the person, because you have people who are pretty, and they lay a lot of store on their beauty, but so they don't know how to, you know, the as it were, how to treat, a man, as it were. Appreciate his provision and his headship. Oh, thank you, that you're a good head, blah, blah, blah. And remember, you chose this head. So if the head is not good, yeah, then that means Somebody's head is not correct. If your head is not correct, you are the one that chose this head, as it were, and so appreciate his provision, appreciate his headship. Then the S word, big word, submit to him. When we say submit to him, the word is, you know, one of the big, argue, I've seen marriages break just because, you know, a wife is very argumentative. You can win the quarrel but lose the marriage. Arguing, there's the Bible talks about a meek and a gentle spirit. It's that it is an attractive thing. There are people who, and I'm not saying that we should, this makes it right. There are people who have had affairs with a PA or somebody who is not even as attractive as their wife. Why? Because the wife, that person listens, is submissive, is gentle, is blah blah blah. But it's dishonoring and disrespect when somebody argues a lot, or stubborn. No, 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 that kind of thing. Um, so when you submit to your husband, you acknowledge his leadership and your belief in him. And sometimes, you may not even agree with what that, but that's what submission is. Submission is different from cooperation. Yeah, when it is convenient, you kind of like, oh, okay, it's convenient for you, then you cooperate. But submission is, it's not convenient for you. You don't agree with it, but you say, well, this person is the head and blah blah blah. Okay. um Men with an unsubmissive wife feel emasculated and undervalued by their spouses. There's people, and we see the Bible example of, is it Vashti and Esther. A queen was deep. That gave her favor, and we see how that story turned around. That it was also her submission, and wisdom that saved Israel. Okay. There's a lot of power in submission. I remember when I was growing up, my dad used to say, look, Shola, it's not about what you are asking for, it's about how you are asking it. And he says, and then he used to tell me, you need to learn to stoop to conquer. I didn't understand. He said, you need to learn to stoop to conquer. And he told me about a book called Sheridan. I never read it, but I will never forget learning to stoop to conquer. And a lot of marriages have been broken because of the lack of the understanding of that principle. It's not even just it's at work, at church. There's a lot of power in submission, gentleness, and not being argumentative, where you just back down and knowing when to back down. Okay. And then number 4 is support his vision. I'm rounding up now. Support his vision. It doesn't necessarily mean working on it, but being fully in support of what he's doing and speaking into it, into its fruition. So he says, oh, I want to start this, but then you come again with another, doing what you can just to encourage, to make sure you do your best to, so that it comes to fruition. The Bible talks about Abigail. He said, Abigail told David, for the Lord will certainly make my Lord a sure house. She wasn't married to him yet. She was, when the Lord has done to my Lord according to all the good that he has spoken concerning you and has appointed you prince over Israel. She was somebody else's wife, but she knew she was married to a fool. And she knew that fool would soon die one way or the other. So she positioned her, look, when the guy died, David went to look for that woman. He said, this is the kind of woman I want to get married to, you know. And the minute her husband died, David invited her to become his wife because, she showed herself to be a good wife, even though she was married to a fool. She must have, it must have been an arranged marriage or whatever. I'm not saying you should be doing that, but in those days, that was how it was, okay? and then that's to serve him. It sounds like, oh, in the 21st century, serve him. Well, we are to serve one another. But, there's something about, no matter how educated the woman say, oh, everybody does their own thing. Look, if you want to build your marriage, you know, serve your spouse. More so as a woman, serve your husband. It's not about slavery. Husbands too, we are also called to serve, in love. But one of the ways you can show respect and honor for your husband is service. From serving him meals, it depends on what is important. Look, my, I mean, I'm not saying necessarily put it on a tray and kneel down. No, not when my wife cooks. I love my wife's cooking. And I don't understand. Do you understand? I don't. There's something that it actually does. And she actually so, oh, I cooked this so for you. And when if she goes further to serve it, and it's not that I require it, I can do it myself, but when she does it, it does. So know your spouse's love language, from serving meals, also administrative support. If you're good at accounting, good at whatever, so, oh, let me help you with that. Let me do this for you. Let me help you. My wife, I'm a scatterbrain. When I travel, and my wife has arranged, even though I may complain, oh, I don't know where this is, oh, where did you put this? Man, it makes, it's a very powerful long love language. Understand, study your husband or your spouse, and and the same way my wife would talk about, serve one another, find out what it is that makes them, happy and feel honored and respected, and do it. Thank you, and God bless you. I hope this helped.
Thank you, Pastor Shola, for that powerful contribution. And I know that many of the points that have been shared there are also helpful for husbands in serving their wives. So we're going to go now to looking at what reverence and honor looks like to a woman. I'm going to just share 4 points as we begin to bring this session to an end. I think one of the first things that is important to a woman in terms of feeling respected and honored in her marriage is approaching the relationship as a partnership. It's really, really important that, a man gives the wife the appropriate honor. Yes, the husband is the head of the home, but the wife is also called to be a partner and a helper to the man. So respect her and let her take that position of partnership in your life. Also give your wife room to be herself. Leadership doesn't mean that we determine what our wives are. We should be able to look at our wife's individuality, the gifts, the talents, the graces upon her life, and release her and harness those potentials and abilities for, the enrichment of our family and our household. Partnership and reverence to a woman also looks like giving her the space to pursue her own dreams, and ambitions. If your wife is going to be your full helper, then she also has to be able to blossom and bloom and bring those abilities and those visions that God has put into her heart, into the earth for the blessing of mankind and your family as a result. A partnership to a woman also means allowing her to have her own voice within the marriage and the relationship. Seek your wife's opinion and give it appropriate weight. Leadership doesn't mean that you are the only one that makes decisions. One of the things that I love about my husband's leadership, even within the church sphere, is that he's not a person that makes all the decisions by himself. He's very consultative in his leadership. And that means that there is variety, there's newness, there's freshness, because life and creativity is coming from different sources. The second way that reverence or honor looks like to a woman is considerate and thoughtful behavior by her spouse or her husband. Knowing and heeding the things that your wife has said is important to her is another key way of giving her appropriate reverence or honor. So maybe your wife has said to you that, she doesn't like being addressed in a particular tone, or she doesn't like you arguing with her in front of her children, or she has said to you that, in terms of the financial management in the family, there's not enough equity. Maybe she doesn't feel that she's been consulted enough. All of those things are things that we need to take into consideration in showing appropriate reverence to our spouse or to our wife. Also, standing up for your wife in public, or with key stakeholders, being considerate about how you speak of her, speaking of her well. And this goes both ways, actually, even with wives concerning husbands, speaking well of her to others and to her in front of others. When you have friends around, it's not the best time, to be critical about your husband or to bring up the problems or the issues, that you're having in your marriage. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't seek help. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't seek mentoring, but we should be selective about how we speak, what we share about our marriage and how we speak about our spouse in public. Even being selective about what we share to others about our spouse. Maybe some things are said to us in confidence. They are meant for your ears only. It's actually dishonoring to hear that repeated to a friend, a sister, a brother, or worse still, an ex. Sometimes, or many times, management of relationship with in-laws is a key marker of reverence. Many times when I speak to couples and I counsel couples, lack of reverence either by the husband for the wife's family, or the wife not feeling that the husband is standing up for her, or maybe she feels that the family are bullying her or that the family are treating her inappropriately, and the husband not being able to boundary their behavior or speak up for the wife often is an indicator of lack of reverence or honor from the woman's side. So let's be mindful about how we are allowing our spouse to be handled by other people in our lives. And then the last point for reverence for what it looks like to a woman is noticing and accommodating her emotional needs. It's important that as a spouse you take the time to know what your wife likes and what makes her happy. Treating her well and meeting her emotional and relational needs. Many men don't understand that not attending to your wife emotionally, to her, is a sign of lack of honor or lack of value. Oftentimes women will feel like, if you care for me, you should notice me. If I'm valuable to me, you should notice me. What are the things that I've been communicating to you about the things that I need from you in terms of attention or affection? Many times a man may not see a lack of attention or affection as a sign of disrespect or lack of value, but for a woman it certainly registers as a lack of being valued by her spouse. So I want to spend the last couple of minutes that we have just talking about being intentional about building your marriage with reverence. This is where we're going to close out in this session, being intentional about building with reverence. What are some key steps that you can begin to take to increase, the level of honor and reverence for each other in your marriage? The first thing is to talk about what honor and reverence looks like to you personally. If you've never had that conversation, take some time, with your spouse and say, this is what honor looks like to me. This is what reverence looks like to me personally. It may be, how we talk to each other or behavior in certain environments with friends, with in-laws. This is how I would like you, to address me in those spaces or even in our day-to-day interactions. Number 2 is agree that you can point out when the mark has been hit or missed. It's one thing to set patterns of behavior that you agree with. It's another thing to be accountable, to it. So make an agreement with your spouse that they can tell you when they miss the mark. Oh, we went out and we agreed that you were not going to do this, or we agreed that you were not going to say this, but you did this. Or times when they hit it, when they hit the mark, where you saw a change in behavior, being also intentional about noticing that and saying, wow, you did really well. I saw a change. Thank you for taking notice of, what I requested from you. And when the mark has been missed, discuss, what can you do differently, next time? Hey, we spoke about this already. Please, next time, I need you to be mindful about this particular issue. And as I said, also celebrating and affirming when the mark has been hit. Oh, thank you for doing this. It made me feel so good. I felt appreciated. I felt really valued when you treated me this way, or when you said this about me, in this environment. And then, be intentional about key moments to reverence your spouse. Birthdays, anniversaries, or if your spouse has done, something, kind. I remember once when I went to Nigeria, I was on a ministry trip, but when I got there, there had been issues with the place where we were staying before. My husband had been mindful about getting somebody to go and fix the issues in the flat we were staying in, so that the place could be comfortable, for me. And then, in the evening, he called me, "Are you settled in? Are you comfortable?" And then I got an alert in my account. How many of you know that that's a good start to a trip? And I thought, that is what being reverenced or being honored looks like. It means somebody is thinking about you, values you, and is making accommodation for you to be treated well and celebrated. And lastly, back it up with daily acts of honor. Be considerate and thoughtful daily. Your pleases and thank yous. Many times we treat strangers better than we treat our spouses. We wouldn't think about a stranger doing something for us and not, saying thank you to them. Or we go to a public place and ask for something. Even if you order a coffee, you say, "Oh, please, can I have this?" But you say to your spouse, "Get me a tea, get me a coffee." So many times we treat bartenders better than we treat our spouse. So those daily acts of reverence, the thought, the pleases, the thank yous, the consulting each other. Okay, there's a key decision to be made. Talking to your spouse about it. One of the sessions that the session I'm taking in my breakout, it's of a slightly sensitive or delicate, nature. So I spoke to my husband about it and said, "Is it okay for me to take this session? How do you feel about it? Yes, I'm an adult. Yes, I'm also a pastor. But it's important for me as he's my pastor to get his go ahead in certain decisions that I am taking." Using the right tone and words when you speak to each other. Many times it's not what you said, as Pastor Shola said, it's how you say it. Making sure that we are careful. There's a way that I can never speak to my father, no matter how much he upsets me or does things that, I don't like. So, for example, I know that if I've not called my dad in a while, like I haven't now, I'm slightly dreading calling him. Because I know he's going to be upset. And I know he's going to tell me, "Oh, do I have many fathers? Maybe I have many fathers. That's why I've not called him. That's why I forgot him in Nigeria," and all of those things. And so I braced myself to to hear that from him. First of all, because I should have been calling him, but also because and the thing with my dad is that if you call him and he hasn't picked up, you still not called him. So I can say to him, "Dad, I've been calling." He said, "No, you are a pastor and you are lying." That's what he would say to me. So, so it's important to just brace yourself and take what you need to take because, hey, this is the position that this person holds in your life and you want to honor them. And so, being mindful about our tone and words, yielding to each other, as Pastor Shah says, knowing the right time, to give up a battle in order to win the war in the end. It's not every point that you have to win. It's not every argument, that you have to win. Part of reverencing and honoring each other is knowing, when to lay down our sword and know when to pick it up the next time. So I hope this has been helpful for you. This has been practical, and you've picked up lots of great tips to move your marriage forward in an honoring and reverential way. So I'm going to be inviting one of the team now to speak to us about the breakouts and how we are going to flow into that.
Thank you so much, Pastor Bimbo. I would have said, let's give Pastor Bimbo a resounding applause, as well as Pastor Shola. I don't know about you, but I was so blessed, and I've picked up a few tips. Know when to fight your battles. It's not every battle you must fight. And I love what Pastor Shola said about, what was the one? Being selective. No, let's focus on what has been done as opposed to what hasn't been done. So let's give our pastors a virtual round of applause, if we can do that. So we will be moving to our breakout sessions right now. So what will happen is that you guys, if you registered before 10 p.m. yesterday, you would have received a link to your breakout session. But we will open all the breakout sessions, so you should actually be able to self-select. So in the next 5 minutes, we will start the breakouts. So enjoy.
Yep, good to go. Thank you.
Right. Okay. So apologies for the technicalities issues that we've had. So my name is Emmanuel Lafe, and this is my beautiful wife, Lisa Olafe. This afternoon, you have us for the next 30 to 40 minutes. We're going to be talking about love languages that honor. So as a brief introduction, as I said, my name is Emmanuel Lafe, and and Lisa Lafe again. We have been married for 17 years.
By the grace of God.
Yes, and we have 3 beautiful children that we like to call our treasures.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we are in a season of parenting a teenager and preteens. And yeah, through the seasons, it's been interesting. The different challenges of remaining connected and honoring each other through those seasons. We are also very passionate, about raising godly children and building a kingdom-focused marriage. So, what does it mean to honor? Romans chapter 12, verse 10 says, "Be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourselves." And I think what's important to note from that is, the scripture here talks about, elevating essentially one another above yourselves. And what's been repeated in the theme that we've heard, I think I just need to, okay. What's been repeated from the themes already shared by Pastor Jella and Pastor Bimbo is the importance of being intentional about reverence, about honor for your partner. The word honor means to highly value something or to appreciate, cherish, and recognize that it is as a priceless treasure. So we have to be intentional. The way you revered, the way you honored your spouse, if you remember those years of dating, of courting, and after 17 years, however many years you have been married, if you're not intentional about that, you can see that the value or the esteem that you hold your partner can begin to diminish. It also means, to enhance someone's reputation or to have a sense of value, price, or quality. Okay, the qualities that you gleaned, the qualities that you saw in your spouse, as I said, in those years, those early years. How do you maintain that? How do you make sure that those are not diminished in your eyes? And one of the risks that we run after years of marriage is familiarity. Okay, because you've seen them finish, as they say. So we have to be very mindful of that. We demonstrate honor by placing our spouse above ourselves. This is easily lost after many years of marriage. What were you doing in the infancy of your marriage that you no longer practice? Serving food. It's sometimes, come home, cooking. Sometimes I come home now, you see the food in the microwave. That's a joke. Opening doors as a husband, when in those years, when you're opening doors, are you still doing that?
Cooking for me when we're dating, but suddenly not being able to remember how to cook.
I don't remember ever being a cook.
I remember.
And okay. Yeah, and really, you need to raise your mic.
Oh,
yeah.
Apologies.
Dating each other. That's one thing that we lose after years of marriage. If you remember when you were, those early years, you were actually dating, you were courting your spouse. And, it's very easily lost if we are not intentional of maintaining those practices and those routines, okay, of having date nights. I know, for people who are early in their marriage, that's one of the things that was taught, reiterated, and we were reminded the importance of dating, having those practices. So those are just a few things.
Yeah, and Matthew 6:21 says, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." So just adding to what my husband has said, some of the questions you should ask yourself is, do you treasure your spouse? Do you show them that you treasure your spouse? And in the way that you show them that you treasure them, do they receive it in that way? Do they feel treasured? They feel appreciated? Another question to ask yourself is, do you recognize the beauty and the worth of your spouse? It's easy to take for granted, as Manny was saying earlier on, after many years of marriage, you just take each other for granted. But it's important that you show honor by, just recognizing, just sometimes just looking at them and appreciating, the blessing that they are to you, that they are to your marriage, that they are to your home, to your children. What are you doing to demonstrate that recognition and that appreciation? Are you showing them in the way you speak to them, in the way you handle them, in the way you talk about them? We heard earlier on from Pastor B and Pastor Shola's sessions. Are you showing them? Does your spouse feel, do they recognize and appreciate that? It's about being dedicated to building not just a strong foundation, but habits in your marriage. So daily actions that we take, go a long way. So from as little as in the morning, for example, my husband goes downstairs and he always wakes me up with coffee. And that little thing can be taken for granted, but I appreciate it, and it shows me that he appreciates and he recognizes the value that I bring to our relationship. Like you said, you have to be intentional about creating those little habits and practices that communicate honor. And it's also really easy to do what we think communicates that, but it's really, really important that your spouse receives that in the way that they will appreciate it. And that's what we're really going to talk about more in our session. So it's not about what you said or how much you've spent even, but how your spouse feels. So a lot of the times we feel like, oh, but I do this, oh, but I do that, oh, but I've shown you. But if your spouse isn't feeling that, isn't receiving it, then there's something that's missing. And that's where love languages will come in, okay?
So, it's very, very important for us to be very mindful of that. As Lisa said, when we talk about love languages, we need to be mindful of not giving love in the way that we like to receive it. What's critical is how they like to receive love. So you can spend all the money in the world, and if gifts is not their love language, so to speak, you're wasting your money on material things. So here we're just talking about, should a husband honor his wife? I believe this should go without saying. Culture versus, we'll put it culture versus scripture. 1 Peter 3 verse 7 says, likewise, husbands, live with your wives in an understanding way, showing honor to the woman as the weaker vessel, since they are heirs with you of the grace of life, so that your prayer may not be hindered. It's very, very critical for us to know. Pastor Shola earlier talked about how we honor, how we respect our wives, and how we speak about them, even to our in-laws, to friends, to family, and so on. And we need to do that with understanding. We need to do that with wisdom, okay? You need to be, if you speak negatively about your wife or your husband to your sister, for example, or your parents, for example, and when they come round, once you've spoken and said all these things about them, and you've seen them finish, or they have seen them finish, for example, how do you expect your in-laws to then respect your husband or your wife? So we need to be very, very mindful of that. The Bible is clear that husbands should also honor and respect their wife, and it's a two-way street. If you don't respect the person, if you diminish their value, how would you then expect them? Okay, why would you then expect them to respect, to love you, okay, the way that you want to be loved? Your wife will never be content in your marriage if you don't respect her and treat her, okay, as a person. She, you're the king of your castle, but she's not the doormat. She's not your maid servant, so to speak. Okay, you're supposed to cherish her. She's your queen. Okay, love her as such with understanding. Okay, so respect her enough to ask her opinion and value her contribution. Marriage is a partnership, not a dictatorship. I've fallen foul of this one a few times, not deliberately, not intentionally, but taking decisions where I believed I'd consulted, or we've had a word, we've discussed it, and I've gone ahead and bought a kitchen or bought a car, and Lisa's like, where did this come from? I'm like, I mentioned it to you, we discussed this, but it's very, very important, especially where for a man, if you're the main earner, for example, it's important to make sure that your wife feels involved, feels consulted, so that it doesn't, she doesn't feel as though all the key decisions in the house is being taken by you, and she just sees the result. Okay, I've bought this, I've done that, and so on. So it shows respect, it shows honor that she's consulted and she's involved in the key decision making.
Thankfully, though, that was many years ago, and I feel like we've come a long way now. So thank you for acknowledging that. Okay, so we're going to go on to talk a little bit more about love languages. So what is a love language, right? So a love language was something that was developed many years ago by a marriage counselor by the name of Gary Chapman. And he talks about 5 different love languages. So a love language essentially is the way in which a person receives and expresses love in a relationship. So it's a 2-part thing, okay? And the 5 love languages that Gary Chapman came up with are 1, words of affirmation, 2, quality time, 3, physical touch, 4, acts of service, and 5, receiving gifts. Okay, so those are the 5 key love languages, and depending on your spouse's preference or your spouse's personality or whatever it is, their makeup, they will have one primary love language. They can have more than one, but they would usually always have one primary love language. Okay, so I'm just going to share a few key things about love languages. Okay, so basically, the need to feel loved is a primary human emotional need. It's not a want, it's not a desire. As human beings, we were created to feel loved. We were created to want to be loved. Every human being, in order for them to thrive, needs love, and it's really, really important that your spouse is able to feel that. Okay, knowing your partner's love language and letting them know yours is a way to help you both feel loved and appreciated in the marriage. If you are speaking your spouse's love language and they are speaking your love language, not what you think it should be, then I guarantee you that your relationship will thrive and grow. The bond between you will thrive and grow in a way that you couldn't have imagined. Okay, you can have, like I said earlier on, more than one love language. However, you will usually only have one primary love language, okay? It's really key to understand that we all speak different love languages. So we must learn the love language of those that we need to communicate with, and that is our spouse. Okay, so imagine Manny was Spanish and only spoke Spanish, and I'm Yoruba and I only spoke Yoruba, right? Well, I'm working on speaking Yoruba. But imagine I did speak Yoruba fluently, and those were the only languages we spoke. Communication between us would be disastrous because we just wouldn't be able to communicate, understand each other. And it's pretty much the same with the love language. If you're speaking a different love language to what your spouse likes to receive, then all your efforts will be in vain, sadly. Okay? Rarely do both husband and wife have the same love language, but it is possible, but it's rare. Identify your own primary love language and your spouse's, and ensure that it is communicated effectively.
Okay, so love languages part 2. Love languages can change, as you go through different seasons. Lisa's love language, when we first started our family, and we first had our son and then our daughter, her love language was acts of service. And, coming home, being supportive, helping with the childcare, I remember when we first had our son, I'll come home from work, I will take over. She would go to sleep, and then I would stay awake till, I don't know, one.
Until, yeah.
Yeah, 1 in the morning, and then I'll hand over.
Yeah.
So that I can get a good night's sleep, and then she'll take over in case, she needs to wake up and so on. Obviously, it was important that I was able to get a good night's sleep. But at that season, it was important for me to be very supportive, to be very hands-on in the chores, responsibilities, and duties around the house.
Yeah, but even as the kids grew, even when we had Gracie, it would still be you coming home. I'd been home with them all day, and you going to the kitchen and clearing the dishes after I cooked dinner and things like that. That was much appreciated.
Yeah. And, now, I think we've come into a season whereby her love language is really more quality time, is really more being present, being around, not just being around, but actually
conversations.
Having conversations. We went through a season whereby, although I was around in the house, I'll come home, I want to detox, shall we say, and I'll come home, I'll be in front of the TV, watching the news, wanting to eat my dinner. She's upstairs.
But that was after, I think that was in the season where my love language had changed, and we hadn't realized that. Even I hadn't realized that it was no more just you doing the physical thing that I needed. Yeah.
That connection, communication was now very critical in that season. So material things can never be a replacement for human emotional love. So it's very important, especially I would say for men, to not think that you can buy affection, or you can by spending money necessarily or willy-nilly.
It helps sometimes. Joking.
Don't spoil the message.
Sorry.
So we need to be mindful that it's not just about material things. And also, this is where it's important for you to know your partner's love language, because it's very easy for you to choose what you find easily to you. If you think you're busy at work, you're a high achiever, and so on, your career comes first. So you just relegate, actual primal love language to something else. So therefore, you feel you can just get your secretary to buy something, or just random gifts, as long as it's expensive. There's only so much that a handbag, there's only so much love and affection a handbag can provide. So we have to be very mindful of that. And, when we talk about love language, we also talk about love tanks. This is a metaphor for the emotional container that stores the love that we receive, and how full or empty it is represents how loved someone feels. So as I said, you can do everything, or you can go about investing in your partner or your spouse's love tank, but doing it in a way that you like to receive love. Okay, so if you're somebody that likes quality time versus somebody that likes to receive gifts, right? So I'm thinking, I'm here, I'm present, I'm sure, all she wants is a Gucci bag, or I don't know.
Luckily
right?
for you, I don't.
Praise the Lord. God bless my bank account. So, if that was her love language, and then I am investing or communicating love to her in how I like to receive love, then that will be a problem. So it's important for us to know what your spouse's love language is, and making sure, or doing your best to make sure that love tank is full, because it's out of that she will be able to meet your needs. Okay, people have different. People behave differently when their love tank is full. If it's diminished, you can see that people can suddenly, we're walking on eggshells, short fuse, irritable. The things that you will overlook, all of a sudden, tension, or there's high tension in the house because somebody's love tank is depleted or running on empty. So we have to be very mindful to continually invest in our partner's love tank, to make sure that they feel loved, that they feel appreciated, that they feel honored, they feel revered. Okay, your love language may be linked to what you did not get as a child. So if you grew up with not having sort of quality time from your parents, or you grew up in poverty, you didn't receive many gifts or material things, you might grow up and that is something that means a lot to you. That's how you now receive love, through gifts and so on. Or it could be a child who growing up, you received a lot of negative words, told that you're not going to amount to much, and so on. So therefore now, as an adult, what you seek is those words of affirmation, confirmation of your self-worth and value. Okay.
Okay, so we're going to talk to you a little bit more and just give you some tips on how you can speak your spouse's love language. Initially, I think it's important to point out that identifying, if you don't know what your love language is, if your spouse doesn't know what their love language is, it's really, really easy to do so. If you go online, you can search for the love language test. There's a series of questions, a quiz, not test, love language quiz. There's a series of questions that you will answer, and it will give you your primary and your secondary love language. So it will be great as a couple, if you haven't already identified that after today's session, to go away and do that, because then you're able to work on filling each other's tanks and speaking each other's love languages. Okay, so if somebody's love language happens to be words of affirmation, the ways in which you can communicate this to your spouse is by doing things such as encouraging them, affirming them, appreciating little things that they do around the house, empathizing with them, listening actively. I remember early on, I remember that, when my husband would do certain things around the house, he'd be like, "Oh, did you notice that had happened?" And I used to think, I don't tell you when I do things around the house. And then it hit me one day. Words of affirmation is one of his love languages. And I realized that all I needed to do was just appreciate what he had done. Okay, acknowledge, sorry, that's it. That was where we kept. It was that I just needed to acknowledge that it had been done. And now I do, and he's a very happy man. So the sort of actions you can take is you can send unexpected notes. It doesn't have to be anything costly. Literally just leave a little note on their pillow to say, "I appreciate you. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for looking after the kids and I," that sort of thing. A text, a random text. It could be a card. Just encourage genuinely and often. I think it's really, really important. Those are little things that you can do for somebody whose words of affirmation. To avoid, you want to make sure that you're not giving non-constructive criticism. You are not recognizing or appreciating their efforts. So those are sort of things to be mindful of if your spouse speaks the love language of words of affirmation.
And it's also critical to note that you should avoid using somebody's love language in a negative way. So if somebody's love language is words of affirmation, you need to be mindful of saying or using negative, attacking words, because it affects them more than somebody who's, let's say, gifts is their love language.
Yeah.
If words of affirmation is their love language, it hits them to the core more when you say negative things. And you notice that especially even in a child, for example, because these principles can also be applied in your relationship with your children. The next one is physical touch. Okay, so these are non-verbal, use of body language, holding hands, a kiss, a pet, and so on. So if somebody's love language is physical touch, being around the house is something so easy to do, and it shows affection. And for men, I've been told this is non-sexual touch. Okay, I didn't know there was such a thing, But yes, it's
After
non-sexual
years
touch.
of listening to
So,
Pastor B, you should know.
I have to be very mindful when we're walking down the street. My wife loves us holding hands and so on, but I have to be also careful in the house. That might mean something else, because she's afraid that, okay, if I'm touching her, this man wants something. So she's like, get thee behind me, somebody. So yes, but hugs.
But a simple peck,
Yes.
like you do, those sort of things go a long way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hugs. It just demonstrates appreciation and love for somebody. So things to avoid is, physical neglect, long stints without intimacy, receiving affection coldly is also not a good thing. You can imagine if you try to pet or hug your spouse and they give you the cold shoulder. That is very, definitely sending very, very negative signals.
And physical touch, I think sometimes people think that physical touch means, everyone who
Purely,
likes sex
yes,
thinks that, that's what it is. But actually it's not. It's not a sexual thing. Okay, so receiving gifts. How can you communicate to someone who receiving gifts is their love language? Being thoughtful, making your spouse a priority, speaking purposefully to them. Actions to take, give thoughtful gifts, and I think the key thing there is thoughtful. It's easy to just buy, like Manny said earlier on, just buy random things or getting somebody else to, purchase gifts. But if it's something that's meaningful, somebody who likes to receive gifts, something meaningful to them. So it has to be thoughtful. And gestures as well. Small things matter in a big way. Express gratitude when receiving a gift as well. So things to avoid, forgetting special occasions. That might be a big no-no. So things
Big fail. Big fail. Sackable things.
Birthdays, anniversaries, that sort of thing. Or an enthusiastic gift receiving. So if, we want to be appreciative and enthusiastic about those things as well. So,
next one, quality time. And this one is amazingly, it doesn't cost you much. And it's something often men overlook. We believe that it's grand gestures, gifts and so on, but just spending time. What you have to be mindful is also that the quality time is not time that is distracted. I used to think that quality time is just
being together
in the same room watching a movie. But to my wife, it's actually
it's a complete
undistracted, talking, facing each other and just talking, being able to speak to each other's hearts, essentially, and not just going to the cinema. Let's go to the cinema. It'll be romantic. It'll be sweet. She's like, so that we can watch a big screen and we can't talk.
Not even just the cinema thing. Like, you would always say things like, let's watch a movie. Yeah. And whilst I appreciate that you were thinking about us spending time together, for me, watching a movie, I always say, is like it's the least form of intimacy, because you're watching a screen, but there's no interaction there. So, yeah.
So create special moments together. Take walks. Do small things with your spouse. Weekend getaways are huge. And this is very critical, especially if you've been married for a while, you've got kids, loads of distraction. Finding those quality times in the house becomes a problem. So take a weekend away.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a weekend away. It could be dinner. The kids go to bed early and we sit down, we have dinner on our own,
Distractions when spending time together, things to avoid, as I said, distractions when spending time together, and long stints without one-on-one time is also to be avoided.
Yeah, so being intentional about carving out that time, even if it's just once a week or every fortnightly, but agreeing that and being intentional to carve out that time for your spouse who needs it. Okay, and finally, acts of service. So acts of service, using action phrases like, I'll help you, so finding out where do they need help? What little things can you do around the house for that person? If it's work related, maybe it's even, packing their lunches or whatnot, but just where can you be helpful? It could be maybe even helping with, with the budget, for example, or paying the bills. that sort of, I'm not saying physically who pays the bills, but being responsible and saying, you know what, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do this. It's just little things that you can do just to show that you appreciate them. So they want to know that you're with them and that you're partnered with them. Okay, so there are sort of actions to take. Do chores together. Make them breakfast in bed, go out of your way to help alleviate their daily workload. That was so meaningful to me. When the kids were a lot younger, they're slightly older now, with our youngest being 10 and the oldest being 15. They do a lot of the things for themselves, hence why my primary love language changed at some point. Okay, so things to avoid. You want to avoid making the request of others a higher priority over them, lacking follow through on tasks big and small. So if you say you're going to do something, if you've communicated that you're going to do certain things, then just seeing that through. So when he would come home and I would have cooked dinner but not had a chance to clean the dishes or clean the kitchen, he'd come home and the first thing he would do was handle those things and then give the children a bath or maybe put them to bed. I just knew that, that was something that he didn't necessarily communicate to me, but he started doing, and we had an understanding that was going to be done. So, and that went a long, long way. So yeah, this graphic basically illustrates the things to do and things to avoid when communicating. When communicating love to your spouse based on their love language, and we hope that you find this helpful. Okay, so benefits of honoring your spouse through their love language. It's a way of building a bond. It's a way of building a connection with your spouse. Okay, it's also a way to show them that you're committed to the relationship and you're willing to do the work. And that's huge in a marriage. If you want to see that long term, it's really, really important that you're communicating that I'm here for the long run. And being able to honor your spouse through their love language is one of the best and key ways in which you can do that.
Especially, if it's not something that comes naturally to you. If somebody goes out of their way to do something for you, I mean, how much more can you demonstrate your love and appreciation of somebody by going out of your way, to do something specifically for that individual? So it goes a long way.
It fosters deeper intimacy with your spouse, both emotionally and physically. It really does, because when you feel loved, when you feel appreciated the way you need it, there's nothing that you're not willing to do for the other person. You're willing to go out of your way with that person. So, yeah. It improves communication, as we've already mentioned. It definitely reduces a lot of misunderstandings. It increases empathy and also leads to greater relationship satisfaction all round. Okay, so honoring your spouse through their love language helps you show them that you care in a way that is meaningful to them, and that goes a long way.
Okay. We're just going to touch on what a love language is not. Okay, it's not about you. It's not about you, but your spouse's need. Pay attention and listen intently. We've said it time and time again. It's about their love language. It's about how they receive love, not how you want to receive love. That's a mistake that people make a lot. I like words of affirmation. So it doesn't necessarily mean that just by saying, oh, Lisa, you're great, you're fantastic, oh, you're the bomb, blah, blah, that's going to fill her love tank. She likes time, quality time. So we need to make sure that we are intentional. Find out if you don't know what your partner's love language is. It's not a tool for manipulation. Washing dishes in exchange for sexual activity or favors is not what it's about. Or I'll buy you this if you do this. Okay, that's witchcraft. Okay, it's not about that. Okay, love languages do not apply to abusive relationships. An abuser who prefers physical touch may expect constant affection without any regard of their partner's, comfort or consent. An abuser, can misuse their partner's primary love language as a means of control or set unrealistic expectations around their preferred love language. for instance, giving gifts may be used to overshadow, excuse abusive actions. So after you've, beaten somebody black and blue, you then come home with, oh look, I bought you flowers, or I bought you a handbag. That's ridiculous. Okay, not to be used as a game or weapon against your partner. Do not keep track of all the times you use your partner's love language and compare it to how many times your partner used yours. So it's not sort of, we're counting. I've done this. We need to be mature about this and not,
just walking in love, really.
Yeah, really. Yeah, as we said, the opening scripture talked about holding our spouse in high regard, having higher estimation of them. Okay, it's not a fix for all your relationship issues. E.g., you may also require marriage counseling or mentorship. Okay, depending on what's gone on in the marriage, what challenges you faced, there might be key issues that need to be addressed before you then expect these sort of acts of service and so on, or these love languages to fix the issues that you might have in the marriage. And finally, love languages can change over time. As I said earlier on, through different seasons, what you need and what you appreciate can change because of the stage of life that you're in. Given life stresses, major changes such as having children, and so on.
Awesome. So we're going to share some tips to honor your spouse's love through their love language. Okay, so identifying your partner's love language, which we've already spoken about. It's important to know your partner's love language because it can help you speak their language, and it will also encourage them to reciprocate this. Okay, so key thing is we want to be speaking their love language. We don't want to assume it. Let's not make assumptions. There's a saying that says assumptions make an ass out of you and me. So it's best to communicate and actually sit down, do the quiz together, talk about it, and just say, right, what would you say? How can I help? How can I help you? What are the sort of things that would help you feel loved? Because we have shared some tips today, but it's really, really important also that you can ask them because it varies. We've given some examples, but it varies, and there's a vast array of examples that can be used. Okay, make your spouse a priority and speak purposefully to them. Speak in love. Giving thoughtful gifts, not just for special occasions, and the size really doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a grand, like Manny said earlier. It doesn't have to be a grand gift. Doesn't have to be a grand gesture. It could be the littlest thing. It could be. I remember once Pastor Shola shared about, he had gone somewhere. I think did he share that out or did he share that privately with you? I just remember that you guys, I think you were dropping him home and he had stopped.
Oh, to buy Pastor B coffee.
He stopped to buy Pastor B coffee. And I remember you coming home, that's it. You came home and you were like, this was what Pastor Scholes did. He was like, let's just stop, grab Pastor B, because Pastor B loves her coffee. And I could just imagine that when he got home with that cup of coffee, that might not have seemed like a big thing to her. That would have meant a lot because it would have shown her that even though he'd been out, for most of the day, he thought about her on his way home. So it's just the little things. How much did coffee cost? But I'm sure Pastor B would have given Pastor Scholes a good dinner that night. Expressing gratitude. Express gratitude when you're giving a gift, So I think it's also really important that we've talked a lot about when, receiving the gift, giving gifts, or giving love languages. But when you receive that as well, just expressing your gratitude, letting your partner know that, yes, this worked. And I think PB earlier mentioned about when it's, it hits. So spending quality time together. If your partner's love language is quality time, I think we've already spoken about this, a getaway with both of you will go a long way. Showing physical affection, physical action of affection, such as kissing, cuddling, holding hands, and sex can make your partner feel appreciated. Non-sexual touch, as we said already, goes a long, long way.
Not lie. No such thing.
It does, I think mainly the ladies, but anyway. Not
I'm
saying we
joking.
don't like it, I'm just
joking.
saying it goes a long way when you receive physical touch and there's nothing being expected for it. Yeah, so thank you very much.
Okay, so do we have Q&A? Okay, so we've got a few.
Oh yes, so do we have any...
We've got a few minutes.
Don't close,
So
yeah.
I'm gonna go.
So if you have any questions, please feel free to pop them up. No, hold on, babe. I'm the technical one in the household. Let me do that. Okay. Do we have any questions, please?
Anyone in the room?
If you have any questions based on what we've spoken about today, please don't be shy. You can, I think you could pop it in the message box, or if there's the option to unmute yourself, then please, by all means, feel free to do so. No? I think we did a good job that there's no questions to be asked.
Good?
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Manny and Lisa. God bless you guys real good. We're now going to take a break, 15 minutes comfort break, and we will start our chat show at 4:30. So take a few minutes, get a cup of coffee, some biscuits, and join us for the chat show. See you shortly. Bye-bye.
2025 from Thursday 20th of February to Sunday 23rd of February 2025. Yes, it's a destination weekend themed Enliven, and we will be hosting you in Malta at a luxurious 5-star hotel. Come along and pick up tips on how to enliven, enhance and spice up your marriage. It promises to be an impactful and exciting event. The cost is £1,250 per couple for hotel and flights, or £800 for hotel stay. You can also pay in instalments. Spaces are limited, so register today. To register, please visit Eventbrite or email enrich@thelibertychurchlondon.com for more information.
Testing.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah. Okay. With me on the stage, I have 3 couples, I believe, 4. Yeah, Pastor Shul. Pastor. Pastor is a role. No, not really a role. Yeah, is with us, but is not physically present. Can I have the couples introduce themselves, tell us your names, and how long you've been married? If we start with Rachel. Hi.
Hello, my name is Rachel Akwana. I've been married to Jonathan for 2 years, going on 2 years in November.
Thank you.
I'm Jonathan Akwana, married to Rachel Akwana. 2 years.
That's okay.
Hi, my name is Manuel Lafe, and this is my beautiful wife, Lisa Olafe. We've been married for 17 years.
Thank you, Manny.
My name is Bimbo Fola-Alade. I've been married 26 years.
Oh, wow.
My name is Toyin Kayode, married to Akin Kayode, Akin Kayode. We're married 18 years next month.
We're legal now. We're legal.
We're adults.
Adult life. Thank you very much. So I'm sure you can see we have wealth of experience in the room.
The QR code for the Slido should be up. Please start scanning and start putting your questions through, and we can kick off. I have a few questions come on already, so I'll take the first one. How can you revere a spouse that constantly criticizes you and puts you down? Good one to start with. I'm going to go with Lisa, because I was in your last session, and yeah, you seem to have a lot to say. You always do.
I'm not sure if that's a good thing.
No, it's a good thing. Yeah.
Okay, I think it's a difficult one because it's a hard place to be when you have a spouse. The questions. That constantly criticize you or puts you down.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Scripture is clear. I feel like as Christians, we always have to go back to Scripture, and Scripture is clear that we should honor one another. We should respect one another. I don't know if it's husband and wife, but it goes both ways, as we've heard today from today's conference so far. That honor and respect goes both ways, and I genuinely believe that as we do that and we work through that, that God will honor that.
Mm-hmm.
He would honor that obedience to honor your spouse, and will work. Hopefully, will work on the other person's heart. And I think it's also it's important to communicate. Communicate to your spouse how, because sometimes they may not actually realize the impact that's having on you.
That's
so
true.
Communicating to them how that's making you feel. I remember in the early years of our relationship, it wasn't criticism. It was just Amani he's an orderly person.
He's regimental.
Yeah.
I know.
I am not. So things that seemed just the norm to him wasn't for me, And so we got to the point where we were butting heads a lot, and eventually I just realized that it was in how he was communicating, and I took it as criticism, which was not how he meant it. So once we had that conversation, now what we do, and I find, I don't say it as much anymore. It just occurred to me. So it was what we used to say was, I would say, so we had an agreement that I would say speak in love whenever I felt like he was speaking to me in a way that criticized me, and I would just say, babe, speak in love. And instantly, he understood that and would dial it back. But just having that conversation and communicating, that made a huge difference.
Yeah, I think it's also quite important to get to the bottom of the criticism, because it's not a nice thing if you're made to feel essentially less than or small in your own home, and the constant criticism can diminish somebody's self-worth, which is something that seems to be appearing now.
Yes.
So it's really important to have that sit down to communicate how that makes you feel and what the problem is with the spouse that is causing them to be so critical. What exactly is it they're critical about?
Mm-hmm.
And to try and resolve that.
Thank you very much. I think we heard the women's side and the men's side as well. So very covered. Thank you, guys. Let's take another one. What do you do when your partner says he has feelings for someone else, but he claims to love you? Wow.
I think Pastor B should answer that.
I'm going to suggest that too.
Thank you.
So I get all the difficult questions. Is that how it works?
No, yes.
Yeah. Well, I think actually that maybe what the person has is feelings of attraction to somebody else, or they're in lust with somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So technically, it's possible fundamentally to love somebody and be attracted to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
But I think definitely it's a problem, and you need to have a conversation about it. So I think it's also a matter of degree. Like your spouse might see somebody else that they think is good looking or they find attractive, and I say, oh wow, that's a handsome guy or that's a fine babe or whatever. And if that's where it stops, then, hey, we all have eyes, and we'll continue to have eyes and see other people that are attractive. But I think, interestingly enough, it depends on your level of honesty with each other, or the level of transparency that you've agreed to do your marriage with. So, we've had some couples retreats where we've asked this question: if your spouse has feelings for somebody else or is attracted to somebody else, do you want to know? And I'm actually surprised that some people say no. It baffles me that some people say no, but I guess for some people, if it's not brought up, then I don't have to deal with it. But actually, that's just like your house is on fire and you are refusing to acknowledge that it's on fire. So I would certainly say have a level of transparency with your spouse, that you're able to say, oh, if you're attracted to somebody else, because they can help you draw boundaries, they can keep you accountable, and you can know as a couple when you need to do some emergency readjusting, concerning that. So I think it happens, but it's a problem. And, bringing it out in the open, talking about it, being accountable to each other about it is a way that you navigate and move through it.
But do you think, can I ask a question, Pastor Bims? Do you think that can cause more problems in the marriage if they're not that mature to handle it?
Well, yes. I mean, I can see that may be why a spouse will actually say, if my husband, because we've heard this at a marriage retreat where somebody said, if my husband is attracted to somebody else, I don't want to hear about it, I don't want to know about it. It may be that the person doesn't feel that they have the emotional resources to deal with that. What I'm saying is that being in denial doesn't help either. So it's about, I think there are lots of things that we deal with in marriage that we don't like.
True.
This is just one of them. So it's about, and we don't talk about it. These are things we don't talk about it. So it's about, saying as a couple that we're willing to have difficult conversations. We're willing to talk about things that may be uncomfortable for one person, but knowing that honesty means that I'm aware of what is going on, and I'm able to help my partner to put limits, around this relationship getting out of hand.
Fantastic.
I was just going to say that the demarcation between the attraction is one thing, but I think he said he has feelings. So, and that's where I think certain boundaries have already been overridden. Because as you said, you can find somebody attractive, you can think somebody looks cool, so to speak, but then to the point that you have feelings for that individual. And which is where knowing and your spouse helping you to draw boundaries is critical. So yeah, it's a challenging one.
I actually could draw an example from that. So I recently, not recently, over a year, started attending the gym. So I started attending it, and the gym can be a very interesting place. So the first thing I said to Tony, I think it was the second day or so, I said, I've got a gym girlfriend.
Okay, now let's go there.
And she just rolled my eyes.
And the reason I did that is to let her know, look, there's someone in that gym that's kind of attractive. Nothing in me to want to pursue anything, but
we hope.
And we have conversations, and we laugh, and I probably get back, oh, how's your gym girlfriend today? And we made it into a thing that's a joke.
Are you sure she hasn't joined the gym as well?
Don't do gyms.
I so wish Pastor Shola was here. So Pastor Shola, please feel free to put a chat in the comment section. If there's something missing that we need to add here, we can always bring your wisdom to bear. I would be in that gym
so fast. Joint membership.
Wow. Fantastic. Thank you for doing justice to that question. Okay, we have another one. What do you do when your partner... Oh, sorry, we covered that one. My husband had an affair over a year ago, and I'm finding it difficult to forgive him. We can't seem to move past this. It's difficult to honor and respect him. Tony, Kennedy, what do you think? What's your advice?
What's my advice? The truth is that when an affair has occurred, it's difficult. And I mean, people just said that we all have different emotional capacity. So I think, I mean, and we've had this said over and over again, I think more than anything, they need to seek counseling. They definitely need somebody that she can speak to, be open to that, obviously make her see other ways of, you know, getting through this process. It's a difficult time. It's not going to happen overnight as well. And I think her husband also needs to be patient enough and make her go through, because they're going to be like different emotions. Because, you know, sometimes it's going to be maybe you're experiencing some sort of grief because a covenant has been broken. So I think one, she needs counseling, and she also needs to give herself time to process the things that have gone through, that she has gone through and has happened. And the husband also needs to be patient with her.
Can I just, I know you said she needs counseling, but I know what you mean is they need counseling, just to clarify. Yeah, just to clarify that. And I think, you know, because it says that they can't seem to move past this. So just to add also to what Toyin said about the husband, there's going to have to be boundaries. That relationship needs to be boundaried. He's going to have to show her as well. So what's his attitude? And I think that would be an interesting one, because if he is not remorseful, for example, it's going to be hard to get past it. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done in that relationship from both sides.
Both of them.
But he really needs to begin to make amends and show that that was a mistake. He's remorseful. He wants to make their marriage work. He's going to have to jump through hoops and whatever else to really show. He's going to have to be open with his, you know, his phone. If she has questions, he needs to want to answer those questions. But yeah, it's probably going to be a long journey, but if they're both committed to making it work, it can be worked out, but they both need to be.
Is it, is it okay for him to expect to be honored and respected, though, considering what he's done? I mean, we're here to talk about revering, right? So, yeah, considering what he's done and the fact that they're struggling to come through that, and yeah, would he want to be respected and honored? Has he earned it?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes, for the honor. Yes, for the respect. But my guy also needs to work. He needs to prove that that was an error, and I respect you as well. I'm ready to serve our marriage. I'm ready to save our marriage. So it might seem like, as the guy, that you seem like a fool. It might seem like you're degrading yourself. But if it takes that to fight for what it is you believe in, fight. Fight and save the marriage. Humble yourself, as they say, you know. And in the process of you committing to humbling yourself, in the place of you committing to serve the marriage, my prayer is that the wife also sees that you're doing the work, you know. And as both of you are then doing the work together, my prayer is that the marriage is saved, you know. But there has to be work, maybe more from the guy's side, but from both sides as well.
I think we need to distinguish between, when you say honor, yes, as Max said, but I think we need to distinguish between honor and trust. So yes to the honor, but you can't expect her to trust him. The trust that has taken years to build has been destroyed in a second. So now he needs to pay the price to rebuild that trust again.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to add some really, really like great comments. I think when Pastor was teaching, he talked about being a husband, being an office, you know. And I think I was talking about there's some ways I can never address my dad, even if he's upset me, you know. So I think there is a certain baseline of respect that we need to have in how we treat each other, speak to each other, even at times where it feels like the other person doesn't deserve it. And I think, you know, we have to be careful of not letting the enemy take more ground than he already has. So if there's already betrayal, and then you add disrespect onto that, even though it might seem warranted, you're really opening the door for the enemy to take a lot of ground, in your marriage. So many times God's standard and ways are not our way. What might seem natural in terms of how we should respond is oftentimes not the spiritual way to respond, in a situation. So as difficult as it would be, I would want to encourage the wife to continue to be respectful in her communication to the husband. That doesn't mean she's not being honest, she's not showing her level of pain, and that she's not expecting a change or in fact demanding, a different way of behaving. So I want to join this to another question here. So I see another question here that says, how do you revere a spouse who has a weakness, apologizes after each sexual affair, and poor financial management, supposedly addicted to gambling? So, if there has been, adultery, there has to be accountability. Sorry doesn't mend
it.
right? You can't say, oh, I said I'm sorry, that's the end. Why can't you just trust me again? Trust has been lost and it needs to be rebuilt. And I like what Akin said about, how you have to humble yourself. So there might be a level of accountability that your spouse expects that you think is ridiculous. But if that's what they need, if that's what makes them feel safe, then you have to give that. If they're saying, I want the password to your phone, I want access to your emails. If you're late home from work, I want you to email me. I want you to take a picture of where you are and send it to me. Your spouse can ask that because you have betrayed
their trust.
And you're trying to rebuild it by showing, look, my hands are clean. All accountability is saying, see, my hands are clean. You can have a look anytime. If there is repeated behavior, then there is a lack of understanding or there is an addiction, which is a spiritual problem. So I would say, if there is repeated behavior, your spouse does not understand what covenant means and does not appreciate what is required of himself in that role. So if the person is repeating a behavior committedly, you are training them to treat you badly, right? You're saying, it's okay. As long as you say it's sorry, I'm going to take you back. There has to be drawing. So I remember many years ago, actually, in our previous ministry, a couple, the first time I met them, it was because the husband had an affair, and he initiated the counseling. He brought his wife to counseling because he'd had an affair and he wanted, restoration. We worked through that, and they got back to a good place. And then he had an affair again, and he brought her to counseling again because he thought, oh, all that needs to happen is whenever I mess up, I just need to bring her to counseling.
And that's it.
They will tell her about covenant of marriage and how you are not supposed to
And she'll
walk away
forgive
from
me.
your marriage, and she will just forgive me. So there was a point where I had to have a conversation with him to say that if this is repeated, scripturally, she has a right to walk away from this marriage. You cannot expect her. The Bible, there are 2 or 3 grounds for biblical divorce, and we're not advocating it. We don't encourage it. But the Bible recognizes adultery as vitiating the covenant, bringing the covenant to an end, and giving you, if you desire, a legitimate and a scriptural ground to walk away from marriage. Now, this is something else we don't talk about in church because we don't encourage divorce. But if somebody shows a pattern of not honoring biblical injunction and not wanting to stand by marriage, then the wife can make a decision that I'm not willing to continue this because the person has made it clear that actually they don't want a covenant marriage. They want to be able to step out anytime they want. And they actually want to use a covenant of marriage to justify and maintain them.
They want to eat their cake and have it, essentially.
Yeah, so it happened with this couple, sadly, that the relationship broke up because he wasn't willing to stop cheating. He just wanted his wife to keep forgiving him.
That's a shame.
So, a person like that needs to get counseling and needs to be confronted with what the truth is and needs to make a decision. Okay, I'm going to take on boundaries. I'm going to take on accountability. I'm going to change, my behavior. And if they're unwilling to, they also need to be willing to face the consequences of not making those adjustments.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you very much.
Pastor Shola, please talk online in case we are all fired after this chat show.
Thank you, Pastor Vims. Rachel, I have one for you. How do you get your husband to understand that not all female friends are good in relationship?
Interesting question. How do you get your husband to understand that not all female friends are good relationships? I think one thing is, I guess it goes back to reverence as well. Just you and your husband, do you have that relationship where you actually honor what each other says and what your thoughts are? I think in our relationship, we can speak to each other. I would say speak to your husband, let him know how you feel and why you feel that way. So is it from a place of jealousy? Is it from a place, have you seen something? Or is it just basically get him to a place where he understands where you're coming from? And I think a reasonable and understanding person will see that, and the care that they have for you will be enough to know that, okay, there's something here. It can't just be all females in your lives that you don't want him to speak to. But I think just having that place of communication, I would say.
And you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I actually think it's dangerous grounds. If you're married and you have, sounds like this person has loads of female friends, because I don't know, for me, I found it safety and boundaried a lot of female relationships. So all my female friends became Lisa's friends.
Oh, friends.
And if they weren't my friends, they weren't his friends anymore.
Oh, wow.
Agreed.
So honestly, like all the friends that I had from uni, they were transferred to her. So all those relationships were conducted through Lisa. So if you're not friends, otherwise I've got a wife and I don't know, I just find it weird. I'm talking randomly to some female who Lisa doesn't know, she doesn't have a relationship with. And so for me, it just boundaried those friendships.
Wisdom.
I remember when we were dating, I had one female friend who, she came around to see me, and I remember Lisa was like, "Who is this friend? Why is she in your house?" So I was like, "Don't worry, I have no interest. She's not my type."
What if she was your type?
I know, right?
But that wasn't enough, though. I just wasn't comfortable with the fact that she was she was in the house.
Yeah.
She's no longer a friend now, so.
Okay, so I was going to ask this question, which is, what if it's a same-sex friend that your spouse doesn't like? How do you handle that?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe your husband has a guy friend, or your wife has a lady friend that you don't like. How do you handle that within your marriage?
Because of a negative influence, for example.
Can I just chip in? I think it's like when you're married, the person you're married to is your top priority. So by definition, the day you make that, you say I do, everything else is subject to the whims of the marriage. That has to be the thing that you protect first. So if it's such an issue, first you have to have a conversation, understand, maybe clarify some areas. Maybe there's some misunderstandings about the relationship, the dynamic, whatever. But then I feel like you have to come to a place where you're both 100% on the same page about it, because otherwise you're jeopardizing the most important relationship that you have for something that may or may not last in the future, which makes no sense.
Thank you.
Go ahead, what I was going to add to that is also, you're showing who you prioritize. Mm-hmm. Are you prioritizing your spouse, or essentially are you prioritizing yourself? Because if you're insisting on holding on to that friendship, then you're prioritizing yourself. And we're called to be selfless in our marriages. Mm-hmm. And I think the other key thing to also remember is that the other key thing to also remember is, oh goodness, I forgot what I was going to say. I'll come back to me later.
Yeah, I was going to say that sometimes there's something that your spouse has seen that you don't see. You know, so if it's a girlfriend, maybe your husband is attracted to her, or maybe she's attracted to your husband, and she's given indications that you know is making the other person uncomfortable, or they just don't like the person. So I remember when we got married, there was a friend of mine. I wouldn't say she was like my best friend, but she was close. She was somebody that was quite regular in my life at that time. My husband just didn't like her. It wasn't that there was any attraction or anything. He just thought that she was not a serious person, or somebody that should be close to me. And so she's still my friend, but she's now in the periphery. So I will engage with her socially, but we don't call each other. We don't, the relationship is not like it was before. So sometimes you have to kind of make adjustments in your relationship, based on yourselves. Because as the Kona said, look, that's the most important relationship. And if that person doesn't like them for some reason, then it's important to you that you take that into
you prioritize, really.
Can I just add, I just remembered, you also have to ask yourself, like PB said, you might not see certain things that your spouse sees, but you have to ask yourself what that person, what that friend brings to you as a person, as an individual, what benefit. I remember I had a couple of good friends, and Manny used to say, you have too many friends, and I never really understood that, but then I realized that this was when we were still dating, actually, before we got married, but then I realized that the things that held the relationship together were actually not things that were going to honor my marriage. They were not things that were going to build me up as a person into the woman or the wife or the person that I wanted to be as a child of Christ. So if, for example, that relationship is based on, this is the person who calls you when they want to go and party on a Friday night. Let's go to this Orambe when you should be at home with your family or helping out with the children. Then you have to understand that in the long run, that's going to destroy your relationship. So again, who am I prioritizing here? Am I prioritizing my home? Am I prioritizing that union or myself? Is this for my own gain or my own benefit?
Fantastic. Thank you very much. We've done justice to that one. I think this one's for PB, considering the session you held earlier, honoring with intimacy. It says, I have a higher sex drive. I think that should read. I have a higher sex drive than my husband. As that is not typical, it makes me feel dishonored, unwanted, and chips at my self-esteem.
Okay. Yeah, I think, yes, first of all, we very easily make assumptions about, typically it's the man that wants it more. That's not always the case. And it sometimes also shifts with life seasons. There might be seasons where one person desires it more, more than others. She says, as that is not typical, it makes me feel dishonored, unwanted, and chips at my self-esteem. So I think there's something missing there. She's not saying why it makes her, just having a higher sex drive doesn't make you feel dishonored or unwanted. It might be that she's desiring it more, and because her husband is not, making herself available or meeting that need, it's making her feel dishonored, unwanted, and chipping at her self-esteem. So I would say, like most things in marriage, you have to have a conversation about it. It might be something as little as her husband helping her understand. Me not being available to you sexually is not because I don't value you. I just don't have the energy. It's not that I don't find you attractive. I just, it's not my focus. So I think sometimes we read things from things that is not, what the other person is feeling or wants to, communicate. So I would say have a conversation around it and then, make some agreements. One of the things I was talking about in the session about sex is a willingness to make adjustments. So that if one person, let's say, wants to have sex every night and one person wants to have sex once a week, can we meet in the middle ground? Can we say 2 or 3 times a week so that everybody is making an effort? One person is holding themselves, and then one person is stretching themselves, for the other, you know. And then are there other things that you can do together as a couple that, you know, helps meet that need? You know, because sometimes the desire for sex is not, it may not even be like the physical satisfaction that you're looking for. You may just be looking for closeness. You may just be looking for intimacy. So is it if maybe you are, you know, touching or hugging a lot, is it meeting that need for intimacy? Does it have to be full sex? Does that make sense? So I think have conversations and be willing to make adjustments. You know, that's the important thing. And also don't read more into it than is being communicated.
Communicated. Thank you.
And just to add to what Pastor B said, just to bring it from a personal perspective, I think it was 2020, 21? Yeah, when I went ill and was in hospital and came out of hospital, the desire, the drive, the engine room wasn't even functioning, you know. But it took us talking about it. It took us explaining, this is where I'm at, this is what's happening to me. It might be the medication, it might just be my mind, you know, but I am not there. So we spoke, and we encouraged each other, you know. And from the support that I got from Tony, I believed helped me speed up my recovery. Do you get? So, yes, what Pastor Bimbo said, speaking, talking, coming to an agreement, find a balance, you know. Is it 5-4, 3-2? Just work something out together. Okay.
5-4-3-2. Sound like you're talking about football formation. 2 at the back, 3 up front. I don't know.
5-4-3-2.
I was just going to say, one of the things I was saying in the breakout was the importance of reverencing each other through it. You know, because it's very easy to start throwing labels. Is there something wrong with you? Are you an animal? You know, why do you want sex so often?
Is it food?
Is it food? All of those things. Respecting each other's needs. You know, because one person doesn't want it that often, does not make them frigid. Because one person wants it all the time doesn't make them an animal. So just being respectful in your communication is one of the key ways. Because once we start throwing those labels around, they bring a divide. It brings a bridge, you know, between us. It makes us feel, you know, misunderstood, and it just breaks down communication. So let's be very mindful when we're negotiating, you know, this issue of sexual desire and want and all that. You know, we are choosing respectful and honoring language as we, you know, navigate it.
Thank you very much. I'll move on to the next question. This one's for AK, because I'm sure you can tell he's the modern man amongst us, dressed like this. Okay, what does honor look like to a modern man? My man doesn't care for women cooking and cleaning, doesn't care if I'm a higher earner. So you're the modern man. What is...
I actually am.
Oh, you're dressed like one.
You know, in terms of, it does not mean anything. You earn more than me. It takes no value away from me. You know, you cook better than I cook, or I cook better than you. It does not take anything. But what I think for the modern man, what is important, and this goes across every man that I know, respect me. Talk to me with kindness. See value in what it is I say. You know, so move away from the tradition and just find the person, find what their interest is, find what they hold in high esteem, and play to those things. That's what I would say. I mean, I don't know. How do you rock it?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, that you probably need to, you know your husband. What makes them tick? What are the things that they like? And it doesn't have to be anything major. It might just even be saying something like, "Oh, you know you're going to be okay. You know you are loving." Or if somebody that likes their head to be rubbed, you're rubbing that head constantly, even though you don't enjoy rubbing it. but basically, coming from there, looking at it from their own perspective, what are the things that they would like, and then you would do those things, and they would appreciate those things more than any other thing that you're doing, that you think you should be doing.
I've been praying for Lisa to make me modern man.
He wants me to make him a house husband.
I-
That's
I-
Manny's prayer. He wants to be a house husband.
I would happily be a house husband. So this
Not in
the
this
stress
life.
is
I'm
the
just trying to imagine Manny with an
Manny,
apron.
honestly. So I'll be very happy. You know, I've been accused of having OCD because I like things tidy and in their place. So I'll be more than happy to be that. But I think times have changed, as you've said. I mean, I have friends who high flyers, work in the city, long hours, and they come home and cook. As in, he doesn't like his wife's cooking, right? So he's not white, you know, as we might assume. Or he's not a black man. He's not an African man. Yeah, he does.
I don't think it's not that he doesn't like his wife cooking.
Oh no, but
He enjoys
he
cooking.
enjoys cooking. He loves coming home. You know, long day, comes home and he'll cook for his family, and we're not talking chips and as in gourmet meals. He loves it, and we have, you know.
Is he Nigerian?
He's Ghanaian, but we also have a Nigerian friend who's like that as well. Again, you know, high flying,
We choose
very.
our friends well. Because we eat well when we go to the house.
Looks like it.
So yeah, I think times have really changed, but you need to communicate and find a balance. You know, I on the other hand, I want to come home and eat. I don't want to cook for anybody. But yeah, so yeah.
I think, Jonathan, you wanted to add to that.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to I've been looking at that question for a while. And my first thought was, what does your man want? It's not what does modern man, like you're married to one person. So it's not really relevant what the definition of a modern man is in your context, because no man is a monolith. Like everyone's different. So to me, it's just as simple as having a conversation, asking him what will float your boat. If these things, I'm assuming, should, don't, what is the answer? And it's kind of irrelevant what a modern man, whatever that means, likes or doesn't like.
Fantastic.
Also, can I just add that it could be from a place of expectations. So it's what she's seen growing up in her home, how maybe her mother honored her father. But, you know, like Jonathan says, who is that person? So sometimes we have to put away our expectations, because those things can become detrimental to our relationship, and actually just have conversations and say, what means more to you? Because there's no point if you abuse a man, right, and don't give him any respect, but yet you're cooking all of the meals from him. He won't want to eat your food.
Yeah.
So that doesn't matter. It's how are you treating him? What does he want? You know, like the men here have said.
And I think it's important that you mentioned what she saw growing up. I'd also like to add that the way our parents honored each other is quite different from what we do now. And that does not necessarily mean, you know, we don't honor ourselves. But what my mother did for my dad, I probably wouldn't do for my husband. But it doesn't mean I disrespect him. But times have changed. Thank you.
But something that came to mind, though, is what if the man demands it? You know, respect me, throw the
petals.
Yeah, on the floor so that I can walk across. You know, what if that's the case? What then happens? I don't know what your ideas are.
It's called a fetish.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between honor and what?
Power trip.
Yeah, and requiring servitude. You know, your spouse is not supposed to be your slave. You know, so I think the important thing is, you know, and this is one of the reasons why we talk to singles a lot about selecting your spouse carefully, because I think if a person has those traits, you will see it. If you do the right things, you take your time, you will see those tendencies, and you know, you'll be able to decide, okay, I can live with this, or I can't live with this. So I think, I mean, so for example, I know somebody who said that her husband expects like a fresh pot of stew every day. Like he can't eat second day stew.
My guy.
Yeah, right.
I've seen that too.
You know,
yes.
so it's like every day there has to be a fresh pot of stew. So she said what she did one day was that she asked him to help her prepare. You know, and that when he saw what it took
How much
to
work.
prepare, he started eating frozen. so what she told him is that the day I cook it, I freeze it. So
Which
it's
makes
like
it fresh.
food when you microwave it. But in this world we're living in, where I'm not a housewife, this can't happen. You can't get a pot of fresh stew every day. So I think sometimes, as we said, it's how we've been raised. So maybe he's been raised by a mom who was a housewife, who cooked fresh stew every day, or they had cooks who cooked fresh stew every day. It's quite different from then coming into marriage with somebody who's also a wage earner. You have small children, you don't have house help, and you're having those expectations. So there has to be that willingness to make adjustment. Part of honoring each other is carrying your weight within the marriage. Not expecting one person to serve you and you are the served. We're serving each other and we're making adjustments, to each other in the marriage.
Great talk. Thank you, Pastor B. Next one. How do you help a partner whose work is more important and he doesn't see it, or create a balance? Lisa, you talked earlier about a season where Manny was working a lot, or maybe coming home.
Sorry, I'm trying to understand the question. How do you help a partner?
How do you help a partner whose work is more important and he doesn't see it, or can create a balance?
So he prioritizes his work over
right. Okay.
He's a high flyer.
Okay.
He's in the city, like Manny.
I receive it.
I think, yes, true. However, I think Manny also kind of recognized the importance of being present at home. And he's always been that father who wants to be present, sometimes too much. Sometimes I'm like, leave, let me deal with that. But I think communication, really, you just have to help your spouse understand that I'm, maybe feeling a bit neglected. I understand that you're working really hard. I know that you're working hard because you want to provide for us. Because that spouse might be doing that, feeling like that's what they should be doing as a husband or as a father, or I want to give my children what they didn't have. However, we know that being present, if you speak to children, if you speak to spouses, they will tell you that being present is just as important, if not, more important. However, the bills do need to be paid, right? I was listening to a very rich man speak. This was a few months ago, and he was talking about the fact that he wished he could go back and turn back time, because he worked so hard because he wanted to provide for his family, and he gave his children absolutely everything that they needed. However, today he doesn't have a relationship because those children will come to an age where they leave home, where they build their own life, but because you haven't established that foundation of come to me, let's have conversations, we can be friends, we can do all of these things, he's lost that. So now as adults, those kids, he doesn't have that relationship with the children because he spent so much time working hard. So husband, if you're out there and you're listening to this, if you're working hard, we appreciate you. God bless you. However, please take time to get a balance and invest in your family, the investing that you're doing in the workplace. If you fell ill tomorrow, work will not look for you.
Life goes on, right?
It's
your family
the
will miss
people
you.
at home who will. So I think we need to be mindful of that.
Well said.
So if we were to answer that, then how does she then help the man to come to that place?
I think clearly they need to communicate, because she's obviously feeling neglected or feeling that there's an imbalance there. And I think in his defense, perhaps he needs to communicate that, I don't know what stage he's in his career, because it might be his early on in his career where he's trying to establish himself, build those foundations, the networks, and make the impression in the industry or in his office. So there needs to be a level of communication to say, okay, for the next 2 years, I need to be grinding to establish myself, get this. It might be, I remember first 3 years, I was studying to do my accounting qualification, for example. So it might be he's studying for professional qualification. juggling work, professional exams, family. I don't know where if children are also there. So it can be that it's just a season. So they need to have that communication that, okay, this season is going to pass. And afterwards, we can then move to another season of life. It can be that by equipping him in recognizing that there's an imbalance in his priorities. If you're going to be working Monday to Friday, 7 to 10 p.m., come home, you're tired, straight to bed, whatever, then weekends, you cannot then be
Go and
hanging.
play football.
Yeah. Exactly. You can't then disappear with the boys or pick up extra work and, then...
Weekend is for us.
Exactly. So you need to have that communication.
Thank you. Rachel?
No, I'll just add to that, like what you said about, what stage is he in his career? Also, is it driven by fear? Maybe he feels like him not providing for the family, would that cause, issues in the family? Does he feel like his work is his identity? So maybe you affirming him in other ways, showing him that it's not just the job, the money, the lifestyle that maybe he's able to provide, but that it's him and the family that you want to prioritize, and that could help somewhere.
Yeah, Jonathan, go on.
Thank you, Vivi. I had a couple of practical, I think, suggestions as well, like kind of piggybacking off what Manny said about having you can just come to an agreement, like, okay, in this season I need to put in the hours, but I can give you half a day a week, and you can just say that that's protected time and just come to that agreement. And so that area is not neglected. Number 2 is you can show them you can help show him examples of people who've been able to do what they're trying to do, but done it without breaking and destroying their relationships. So a book recommendation, you could read Buy Back Your Time. That's a really good book by a guy who's a very, very successful entrepreneur and got divorced after he got divorced in his first marriage building businesses and refused to do it again in his second marriage, and he's now got an amazing relationship with his wife and his kids and has built a massive 9-figure business while being able to do that. So that's another suggestion. And then the third is maybe aligning yourself with what he's doing as much as possible. So for example, maybe you can spend time together at his office or something. I don't know, like go for lunch near his office. Things like that. I know of an entrepreneur who used to take his kids, and he used to get his car driven to his office and have his kids drive with him to the office and then from there to school. So that's how he spent like 30 minutes in the morning with his kids because he was just hustling at that time. So I don't know. I think those might be some practical suggestions.
Wait. PB, you wanted to add to?
Yeah, but I just want us to have room for the other questions. So I think lots of great things have been shared.
Thank you. Thank you very much. How do you deal with a very insecure partner? Tony? You've been quiet for a while.
Everyone's like, don't pick me.
I mean, we know your husband's not insecure, but help us out.
Well, I think a lot of reassurance. And actually, before that, I think it's also trying to get to the root of the insecurity. Because sometimes we're trying to walk through things, but we don't know why we're walking through those things or why those things have come about. So I think, and it goes back to what we're saying again, communication is trying to find the root of those things and put things in place. Find out things they can do to work around it. And then sometimes as well, maybe get mentors that would help. Speak to both of you. Speak to the person. Yeah.
Thank you, Annie.
Yeah, I think, as Tony said, is really getting to the root of their insecurity, and if you could get to that root, really help them to build their self-esteem. I think being insecure, it can lead to dysfunction in the relationship if you're not mindful of that. Because of insecurities, you start doing things that can jeopardize the relationship. So it's important to have that communication and to get to the root of it, and help them to really, what are you doing as a partner to help them build their self-confidence? Could it be something that you've done? Could it be something that you've said? Could it be some kind of betrayal? Could it be, you're flirting with people, if you're showing affection, if you're showing time for other people than your wife, and then you're asking, why is my wife insecure? Because of you, right? So, it's really have that communication to get to the root of it and how you can help them build their confidence.
I would also say slice and dice it. And by that I mean, look at the root of insecurity. Is it to do with you, or did it exist before you? Because sometimes as spouses, we take on false guilt and false responsibility, right? So if the person is insecure, as Manny said, because of some things their spouse is doing, maybe their spouse does not have appropriate boundaries with members of the opposite sex, has been unfaithful, all of those things, of course, that will make you feel insecure in marriage. But if it's insecurity that was brought into the marriage, maybe due to childhood trauma or something like that, you have to recognize that, okay, I'm not responsible for this insecurity. I'm their spouse. I'm supposed to help them and work through it, but I can't take responsibility for it. And you also have to help them seek help. Because as Manny said, if it's not dealt with, it begins to show up in the relationship in different ways. It can show up in over-possessiveness. It can show up in trying to keep the other person back. Don't go ahead, so that my insecurity that I'm not good enough is reinforced. So sometimes there's a level of insecurity that you are dealing with rooted in trauma. It needs professional help. So you have to understand the nature of the beast
dynamics.
you are dealing with to have the appropriate response for it.
I think it's important to know that you want to help them as well. I mean, it's not your fault, especially if they're brought into the relationship, but don't leave them at it. Don't leave them alone. Help them. Seek help, like PV said. Great answers. My husband has poor financial management, to the point he ruined my line of credit. I don't see him trying to rebuild that trust, and I have stopped helping.
Okay, can we connect them to I see we're running out of time. Can we connect, because those two questions have some correlations.
Which two questions?
The one above, it says you've prayed, your spouse is familiar and has no respect for you. They refuse to better themselves and do not provide for the house and do not want counsel. So similar, not exactly the same, but there are some lines of similarity in there. I don't see him trying to rebuild that trust, and I've stopped helping. So
and he doesn't want to provide.
I think we see this in some Christian marriages where one person has come to the point of, this is a covenant. You're stuck with me for life. And, what you got is what you've got. Don't require anything of me. Don't ask anything of me. And don't require me to make any changes or contribution. And that is not, when we're talking about honoring each other, that's not what we are talking about. We've always, I think one of the things we've said consistently in this is that, honoring is, an honoring marriage is one where both parties are making a contribution to the success of the marriage. A sign of honor to your marriage is, I value this person, I want to serve this person. If we have a dynamic in a relationship where one person is being served, one person is the served and one person is the servee, if there's such a thing, there's an imbalance, and it's a relationship that does not look like the picture that God designed for marriage. Will there be seasons in marriage where one party is not contributing, one party is not able to make an equal contribution? Of course, that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is where one person has taken a permanent position that, I don't need to pull my weight. I don't need to make a change. I don't need to make a contribution. I don't need to address persistent areas of failure or weakness. Those are things that need addressing. Those are things that need attention. And I would say, get counseling. Whether you're going to go to a Christian counselor, whether you're going to get pastoral support, of course you're going to make it a point of prayer, but address these things. They need attention. That's not the way a Christian marriage should look. And, you can do something about it. You should do something about it.
Thank you very much, Pastor B.
I think the person was the follow-on question.
Yeah, so I think we've got that covered. Do we have time for another one? What is the best way to start afresh when your spouse hurt you at the beginning, but then he has now changed and treating you better?
Okay, sorry, can we just speak to the second part of that? Somebody has said, how do I reverse such a spouse?
Okay.
So, again, we've spoken about the fact that Revere, a lot of it is in communication, how you talk to each other and how you treat each other. So I think you can continue to be honorable, to be respectful in your speech.
Regardless.
Honorably. It doesn't mean that you accept the person as behavior or that what they're doing is okay, but it's about adding another layer of problems to your existing problems. You don't want to. So I remember several years ago we were and this speaks to, I think it was an issue of gambling. This speaks to, when we went to minister in a church once, and part of the retreat was that we were going to be given couples a 15-minute counseling. I don't even know how they thought that was going to work, because by the time the 15 minutes is over, you've not even finished. But this particular lady, I always remember her because she had such a gentle spirit and demeanor. And she said, I've only come with one question that I've not been able to get my husband to answer. And I only need an answer to this question, which is, did you pawn my wedding ring? She said, that's the only question I want to answer. So obviously she had been dealing with a gambling addiction, with her husband, and her marriage ring had gone missing. And, she had asked him repeatedly, and he'd said no, but she knew he had gambled the ring away. And she just wanted him to own it, so that he could really see how desperate the situation, was. And I think one of the things that, really, struck me and I remember about her is that she was not covering the problem. She was not denying, she was saying, let's bring this thing on the table because you have a problem. But it was her approach and her attitude was very respectful and was very much like, this is our problem. I want us to deal with this. But we can't deal with this if you're not going to be open about, the level of problem that, that we have. So I think you can own the problem. You can know what the problem is, but you can still be, respectful in how I'm not saying you won't be annoyed, irritated, have questions about how the heck did I get myself into this situation. But in your communication, there can still be the appropriate amount of respect that enables you to have a space in which you can work on things and move things forward.
Thank you very much, Pastor B. The one we skipped, yeah. So what's the best way to...
Sorry, is it just to add one thing? I remember a message a few years ago that Pastor Shola preached about forgiveness. And in the message, he talked about praying for the person that you need to forgive. And I think that's a way that, like, you praying for them, not just praying about the situation, but praying, like, I want the best for the person, that work will soften your heart. And I think it will make it easier for you to have that respect and all of that stuff, because prayer works on you. It's not, but if you're praying for the person's well-being, even though you don't feel like it, eventually I think that will help loosen your heart. But I just want to add that.
And just to add one thing, if you remember what I said, is many times addiction is a spiritual problem, so there is also a warfare element to breaking some things like pornographic addiction, gambling addiction, alcohol addiction. They are spiritual problems, and demons hold a person's life in bondage through those things. So there's also an element that prayer has to play in that deliverance or turnaround.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Seem to have lost that question, but I'll take this one. Should my ex-best friend and husband still be in communication after I broke up with her? We did.
He's not serious.
I was just going to say, I think I remember that question. The question about starting afresh. So
Yes,
something along
you've
the
been
lines
hurt.
of
Husband's hurt you. Can you start afresh?
The husband has caused hurt, but is now treating me better. How do I sort of forgive or move on or get over that? I think that was the question. I think that was quite an important one.
Thank you. You remember the question? Can you speak to that?
I was just bringing. I think it might just be a case of you have to at some point just say we're just starting afresh, because clearly who he was then isn't who he is now. And we all change. We don't stay married to the same person forever. The woman that the Lisa married is not the woman he got at year 10, certainly not the person he's got at year 17. So I think it's an opportunity to exercise forgiveness, and clearly he's shown you that he's changed and he's doing better. So sometimes you really just need to say, you know what, we're starting afresh. And I feel like we did that. Do you remember a few years ago, we had a conversation and there were some things that we couldn't agree to disagree. We had to agree to disagree on. And we just thought, okay, do you know what? We're just doing over now and we're starting afresh. And honestly, it gave us, it was so freeing for us.
New
because
lease
it
of
was
life.
almost
really.
like, okay, this is a new husband, this is a new wife.
I forgave her.
And starting afresh. So just, we all need, what Jesus did on the cross, sometimes I just have to think, for the things that I've done, if I could have a second chance, how much more the person that I love.
And I think also in seriousness, just in seriousness as well, that she really needs to embrace her new man, right? And embrace the new person, the new season, the opportunity for a fresh start. Because if she keeps focusing on what's happened in the past, then there's a risk of
bringing up past hurts, or say you did that to me, then the person will almost feel like, well, why bother trying?
So it's really embrace
just
it.
to add to that, even some practical things like, just assume you just met this person again and you're just dating afresh, going on dates, spending time together, just some practical things as well. We discover.
Restart button, like Lisa Manny said. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say that you're actually in a good place compared to many others where he's actually changing, he's remorseful. We've seen some previous questions where the guys have no remorse at all, they're not trying to change. So that should give you some type of reassurance as you start afresh and think of him as a new person, and don't dwell on the issues, because sometimes when you think about something too much, it starts to just continue to live and grow in your head. But if you try your best to just let go of that and move forward, seeing his new actions, that will definitely help.
Thank you.
I was going to say, don't mortgage your future on the past. Don't lose the future that you have based on, something that happened in an instance, especially if you are seeing changed behavior. You're seeing, the enemy can try and rob you of, everything that is, in the future that God has for you. And I always like to say there is nobody that has been married for 15, 16, 17 years. There are just some things we can't share on the public platform that has not had reason to forgive their spouse, to let go of some things, and to start again and to give grace. So, if you're in marriage for the long run, extending forgiveness is something that is part of the package. And, you are in, as Rachel said, in an especially good way because he's making an effort. He's improving. He's making changes. So I think that should actually be a cause of celebration.
It is.
As opposed to, living in the past.
I'd like to add, for some people, forgiveness is actually a daily act of service, because the guy will always do one thing or the other during the day. And I'm not mentioning names.
Can I just say, there's something about your husband that I will never, ever forget. So we were at a marriage retreat, and at the marriage retreat, you're asked to introduce, your spouse. And, her husband introduced her and said, "This is Funke, my social worker."
Spot on. So forgiveness for us is a daily act of service. Yeah.
I thought
Going
that
on
was
24
precious.
years. It still is. Yeah. Thank you. I'm a social worker and happy to be. Thank you. I think we've run out of time. We have audience here. I'm sure you can agree that we've had a fantastic time with our panelists. Thank you very much for the chat show. Thanks for your time. Okay, can I invite Sister Tony? Thank you.
Whoop, whoop.
Whoop, 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 whoop.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Pastor Bimbo, and to all our panelists. I'm sure you would have had an impactful teaching today. I'm just going to tell you briefly a little bit about the Liberty Church. So we describe ourselves as the real church, and every time you come into the Liberty Church, be expected to have a real word. So we use the acronym in the word REAL, R-E-A-L, REAL being R standing for relevant. So like I said, you hear a relevant word, which I'm sure you've heard today. Everything relating to marriage, you're bound to hear it at the Liberty Church. E is for expressive. Woo! Yeah, so we're an expressive bunch. So you would have heard, let me not mention names, Lisa, for example. Yeah, so we're an expressive, so we're here to express ourselves, in the way God has expect us to be. And A stands for authentic, so we're authentic, we're real. We don't do masks, we're here, you come with your wigs, come as you are, but be yourself. And L is for liberated, for it's for freedom that Christ has set you free. So if this is the kind of church that you would like to join, please, what do we say? Join us. So if you want to put any information in the chat, please feel free to do so. We also want to know where you're joining us from. So if you're joining us from outside the UK, please feel free to put the information in the chat. Our visionary pastor is Pastor Fola-Alade, and our resident pastor is Pastor Bimbo, whom I'm sure you've met today. Right, so we meet at 4 locations in the UK and 1 location in Nigeria. So we have Canary Wharf, Woodford, Croydon, and St. John's Wood. Right, so we also meet online. So we meet at 9 a.m. every Sunday, 10 a.m. every Sunday, and 12 noon. So join us online at 12 noon. Right, so that's me done. One more thing about the feedback. I'm sure you'd have lots to, tell us about how you've spent, what you've gained from this conference. And we have a QR code that you can just scan. There should be one on the screen, or if not, there should be one in the chat. So we want to know how you found this conference, and obviously we want to know what we can do better and improve on for next time. And finally, I would just like to tell you about our next event, which is coming up in November. This is the Couples Breakfast. So keep a lookout on Instagram and on Eventbrite. You find the flyer coming up soon. And we also have our Passion Weekend coming up on in February next year, PW25. This time it's in Malta. So if you haven't booked your ticket, I don't know what you're waiting for. We have limited spaces left, so if you're interested, please book your tickets. The registration link is still on Eventbrite, or contact Enrich at thelibertychurchlondon.com. Thank you very much. Well, our panelists, I don't know if you want to say anything. Thank you very much, everybody.
Sunday, 23rd of February 2025. Yes, it's a destination weekend themed Enliven, and we will be hosting you in Malta at a luxurious 5-star hotel. Come along and pick up tips on how to enliven, enhance, and spice up your marriage. It promises to be an impactful and exciting event. The cost is £1,250 per couple for hotel and flights, or £800 for hotel stay. You can also pay in instalments. Spaces are limited, so register today. To register, please visit Eventbrite or email enrich@thelibertychurchlondon.com for more information.